I still remember the exact moment I realized something was terribly wrong. It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the sun glinted off dew-laden grass, and the world felt intentionally silent, as if holding its breath. I was standing in the living room of our modest home, feeling every bit like the 62-year-old widow I had become. My name is Amina Hashwani, a name that once carried so much pride and dignity in our community. Yet that pride felt fragile now, shattered by heartbreak I never imagined. My son, Rehan, had always been the apple of my eye. From the moment I held him in my arms, fresh and crying, I knew he was my purpose. I named him Rehan because it means sweet-smelling plant, hoping he would grow to bring joy and comfort to everyone who knew him. And for many years he did. As a child, he was curious and bright, with eyes that sparkled whenever I entered the room. He would sit by my side, watching me polish the jewelry I made, a skill I inherited from my grandmother. She taught me how to craft delicate bangles and necklaces from silver and semi-precious stones. My jewelry was never ostentatious. It was simple, elegant, steeped in tradition. I sold my pieces at local bazaars, and they became popular enough to support our small household. When Rehan was young, he would watch me at my workbench, mesmerized by the way the silver glinted when I heated it, and how stones came alive when set. He asked countless questions, and I answered each with patience. I remember teaching him how to recognize the difference between a genuine moonstone and one that was merely polished glass. He was a quick learner, and before long, he began helping me with simple tasks, polishing pieces, organizing them by size, and helping me wrap them in velvet pouches. Watching him grow alongside my craft was my greatest joy. Then, when Rehan was 16, tragedy struck. His father, my husband Faiz, died in a tragic accident at the factory where he worked. He was a hard-working man, with rough, calloused hands from years of labor. His laughter had been the soundtrack of our home. We had celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary just a few months before his passing, surrounded by friends, family, and the scent of jasmine that always seemed to follow him. When the news came, I remember feeling as though the ground had shifted under me. I was 53, a mother with a grieving husband, and a teenage son who lost his father. I didn't know how to guide him through that storm, and I barely managed to keep my own composure. But we survived, in part because our community rallied around us. We shared memories, tears, and prayers. And slowly, in the weeks and months that followed, life resumed its painful rhythm. After Faiz died, my jewelry business became the lifeline for Rehan and me. I worked day and night, sacrificing sleep, skipping meals, and ignoring the aches in my back and the growing lines on my face. Rehan, though still grieving, began to shoulder more responsibility. He took on odd jobs, delivering groceries, tutoring younger children, running errands for neighbors, in addition to his schoolwork. By the time he graduated high school, he was the picture of a responsible, devoted son. He earned a small scholarship to attend a local college for business, and I felt immensely proud. He told me he wanted to start his own enterprise one day, perhaps even help expand my jewelry business into something larger. But that was 4 years ago. Fast forward to last Tuesday, and the world I believed we had built together was bare, exposed, and icy. I had a routine. Wake at dawn, perform my ablutions, pray Fajr, and then head to my workshop in the little sunroom at the back of our house. I kept my jewelry collection locked in a glass-fronted cabinet, each piece meticulously arranged. That morning, I rose as usual, my arthritic knees protesting as I climbed the stairs. I put on the kettle, prayed, and prepared myself for another day of work. But as I walked past the cabinet to retrieve my tools, I noticed something odd. One of the drawers where I kept my most precious heirlooms was slightly ajar. My breath caught in my throat. I reached out, feeling the cool metal of the cabinet door beneath my fingertips. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain my son, who was still asleep in his room down the corridor, would hear it. I insisted on being a light sleeper, and yet at that moment, I could hardly hear anything but the ominous pounding of my own heart. I gently pulled the drawer all the way open. Inside lay a tangle of velvet pouches, some empty, others with the faint outline of a necklace or a bangle. But my eyes didn't focus on them. Instead, they zeroed in on the empty slots where half a dozen pouches should have been. Those were the pieces I had always vowed never to part with. A silver locket given to me by my mother on my wedding day, a set of emerald bangles that belonged to my grandmother, a delicate anklet studded with tiny blue sapphires, and 2 necklaces encrusted with pearls and coral that had survived wars and migrations. They were more than jewelry. They were the stories of 3 generations of Hashwanis. My knees buckled. I stumbled, catching myself on the edge of the workbench. The kettle whistled innocently on the stove, but I barely registered it. I could not fathom who would. No. What could have done this? The only other person with access to my workshop was Rayhan. My heart twisted. I rose slowly, steeling myself, and decided to wake him. Rayhan. My voice was shaky as I knocked on his bedroom door. There was no response. Rayhan, Beta, are you awake? I called again, louder. Still nothing. His bed was neatly made, blanket folded back. His clothes were folded on a chair, and his phone lay on the bedside table, screen off. It was just past dawn. How could he not hear me? Panic gnawed at me. I entered the room slowly, approaching his bed. He was on his back, face slack, completely unconscious, but not asleep. I touched his shoulder. He did not stir. I felt his forehead, a thin sheen of sweat, and his skin was cold. Instinctively, I shook him, calling his name. Rayhan! My calls escalated into frantic shouts, and finally, his eyelids flickered. He coughed, wheezing as he opened his eyes. I sank to my knees beside him, relief crashing over me like a wave. He was alive. He looked at me, bleary-eyed. Ma? His voice was hoarse, weak. He sat up, clutching his chest. Beta, are you all right? I grabbed the glass of water sitting on his table and offered it to him. He drank, but his breaths were ragged. I don't know. I felt so weak this morning. Dizzy. He looked at me, then over my shoulder, following my gaze. His eyes widened when he saw me standing, silent, with tears in my eyes. Ma, what? He didn't finish. I turned to face him, my hands trembling as I reached for his wrists. Where were you last night? My voice was uneven, barely above a whisper. I was studying at the library, preparing for exams. You know how important these next few weeks are. He swallowed hard. I called your phone at midnight. It was off. I watched as confusion flickered across his face. Maybe it died. I didn't notice. I was there until late. He gestured vaguely, but his explanation felt flimsy. Rayhan, I forced myself to steady my voice. Your phone was off, and when I woke this morning, I hesitated, struggling to find the words. I found my jewelry missing. His face changed instantly. Shock, guilt, and then something darker flickered in his eyes. You think His voice caught as he stood. Ma, why would you even think that? Because you're the only one who could have accessed my workshop. You have the key. I checked. The door was not forced open. Every word felt like a nail hammered into my heart. The pieces are gone, Beta. My locket, the emeralds, the anklets, everything. They're worth thousands of rupees more than I could make in months, and they were irreplaceable. I saw his shoulders slump as though he'd been winded. He sank back onto his bed. Ma, I don't know what to say. I swear I didn't do this. Pain flashed across his face, and I believed him. For a moment, I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. But then another thought struck me like a blow. Where did you get the money for your tuition this semester? Rayhan's eyes widened. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. He shook his head. I applied for a loan. The bank approved it. I paid half up front, and Beta, I saw your bank statements. You didn't withdraw that much. You only withdrew enough for the application fee. The words tumbled out. I don't know what you did, but those pieces are gone. And My voice cracked. I backed away from him and turned toward the door. I need a moment to think. Rayhan stood following me into the hallway. He reached out, but I shook my head, my vision blurring. The hallway walls that were once painted a soothing cream now looked like prison bars. Ma, please. I didn't sell your jewelry. I would never do that. Then tell me, what happened last night? I forced myself to meet his gaze. The drawer was open, Rayhan. The cabinet was unlocked. Tears streamed down my cheeks. All those pieces, gone. And you have no explanation? He hesitated, then said, I stayed at the library. I really did. I can show you my login times, the CCTV footage if you want. But you came home late. I felt something was wrong when I knocked and you didn't answer. You were unconscious. I paused, remembering the shock of seeing him on his bed, his body limp, his breathing shallow. You weren't asleep, Beta. You were poisoned. My voice dropped to a whisper. Someone tried to kill you. His face turned ashen. He leaned against the wall, swaying slightly. What? Ma, no. I felt sick, yes. But kill me? Why would someone want to kill me? I don't know. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady my racing pulse. But I know something is very wrong. Rayhan, I want to believe you. I do. But I can't ignore the fact that my life's work, everything I inherited, is gone, and my only son nearly died last night. He stared at me, and for a moment, I saw the boy I used to know. The one who trusted me, who used to cling to me when thunder rumbled outside and I sang lullabies to calm him. But now, his gaze was dark, wary, as though I was a stranger accusing him of a crime he didn't commit. Ma, I don't know what to say. He pressed a hand to his forehead, pacing. I swear on your life I didn't do any of it. I would never. Please believe me. I closed my eyes, trying to push back my grief. I want to believe you, Beta, but I have to find out the truth. For your sake. And for mine. I looked at him, tears still glistening in my eyes. I'll call the police. I'll have them search for these pieces. And I'll have them investigate who tried to poison you. His head snapped up. Ma, no, you can't do that. Please don't involve the police. I don't want this known. People will talk. They'll think I'm a criminal. Then tell me the truth, Rayhan. Tell me who did this. Who would want to destroy our lives? My voice trembled, but I held his gaze, determined to find answers. He stared at the floor, silent. Then, almost inaudibly, he said, I don't know. I sank onto the edge of his bed, feeling the cold metal frame beneath me, wishing it could hold up the pieces of my world. Rayhan, you must know something. You're not a stranger to our neighbors. They see you working so hard. You're respected. Whoever did this must be someone close. He ran a hand through his hair, eyes wet. Ma, I swear I don't know. But promise me you won't ruin my life. If you go to the police, they'll think I did it. They'll think I sold your jewelry. I'm the only one who knew where it was. I'm the only one with the key. A sob caught in my throat. I don't want to believe that. But if you didn't do it, then who did? I demanded, my voice rising. He swallowed, looking me square in the eyes. Ma, there's someone I owe money to. I borrowed from a loan shark. He exhaled shakily, as though saying it was the hardest thing he'd ever done. I thought, I could pay him back after I graduated and got a good job. I didn't have any other choice. He found out I wasn't going to be able to pay soon and demanded immediate repayment. He threatened me, Ma. He said if I didn't come up with the money, he'd send someone to get it, one way or another. I didn't think he would actually hurt me, but he did. He slipped something in my drink at the cafeteria last night. That's why I passed out. I stared at him, stunned. A loan shark? Rayhan, why didn't you tell me about this? Why didn't you come to me? We could have figured something out together. He looked guilty, tears mixing with despair. I was ashamed. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could work harder and earn it back. But that was selfish. I'm sorry, Ma. I never meant for any of this to happen to you. My heart ached so fiercely that I felt I might collapse. So, you think he took my jewelry? I asked, my tone hollow. Yes. He must have. He knew how much it meant to you. He knows our family's situation. He demanded it. I can't say I'm surprised. He's ruthless, Ma. I tried to reason with him, but there was nothing I could do. He ran a hand over his face, as though trying to wipe the guilt away. I slumped back, my mind reeling. The betrayal was too painful. My own son had secretly borrowed money from a dangerous man. He had sold our heritage, our history, behind my back. And all the while, he had been in danger of losing his life. Rayhan, how much did you owe him? I whispered. 200,000 rupees, he replied, his voice breaking. It was supposed to be for tuition and living costs. But I fell behind. I had to borrow again to repay the first loan. It became a cycle. He said if I didn't pay everything by yesterday, he'd send someone after me. He clenched his fists. I didn't think he would actually do it. I thought he was just bluffing. 2 lakh rupees, I repeated, feeling the weight of those words. I closed my eyes, taking in a trembling breath. That's a lot of money. But it's not worth my jewelry, Rayhan. Those pieces were irreplaceable. I opened my eyes and looked at him, tears still streaming. Do you understand how much that hurts? They belonged to my mother and grandmother. Each one held a story, a memory. They were a part of who I am. He dropped his gaze, shame flooding his face. I know, Ma. I'm sorry. I should have told you. I never meant for this to happen. I tried to stop him, but he was violent. When I woke up this morning, he was gone. I felt anger rising, hot and fierce. Where is he now, do you know? I asked, my voice trembling but firm. He shook his head. No, I don't know. I think he left town when he realized I couldn't pay. Okay. I took a shaky breath. We'll talk to the police about this. They might be able to track him down. But first, I need to know how you are. You were nearly killed. Did you get medical attention? I stood. Come with me. We'll go to the hospital. Get you checked out properly. He nodded mutely. I helped him gather his strength as best as he could, and we made our way to the car. On the drive to the hospital, the sunlight felt harsh, as though mocking the turmoil inside me. Questions swirled in my mind. How could I protect him? How could I rebuild what was lost? And most of all, how could I forgive him? At the hospital, the doctors ran tests, confirming that he had been poisoned with a fast-acting toxin. It would have killed him if I hadn't found him when I did. While they treated him, I sat in the waiting area, stunned, trying to gather my thoughts. I thought of the locket my mother gave me before she died, a simple silver heart with her initials engraved on the back. I thought of my grandmother's emerald bangles that had survived the partition. The thought of them lost forever felt like losing them all over again. By late afternoon, Rayhan was stable, though weak. A kind nurse wrapped his arm in a warm blanket as I sat by his bedside holding his hand. He slept fitfully, and I found myself praying quietly, asking for strength. I knew what I had to do next. Involve the police, search for the loan shark, and somehow find a way to replace what was lost, though I knew that was impossible. When he awoke, his eyes fluttered open, and he saw me. Relief flooded his face. "Ma, I'm sorry. I never wanted this." He tried to sit up, but pain seared through him. He fell back onto the pillow. "Shh, Beta." I placed a gentle hand on his forehead. "I know you didn't want this either, but we have to fix this. We have to get justice, but first I need you to rest." He nodded, exhaustion clouding his features. I watched him close his eyes, and then I slipped out of the room, my heart heavy. I wandered the hallway aimlessly until I found a quiet corner. I pulled out my phone and dialed the familiar number of Inspector Bilal, the police officer who had helped our neighborhood with a few minor disputes in the past. Inspector Bilal speaking. His deep voice crackled over the line. "Inspector, this is Amina Hashwani," I said, my voice steady but low. "I need to report a crime. My son was poisoned last night, and my jewelry, my family heirlooms were stolen. The person responsible is a dangerous loan shark. Please, I need your help." He paused, then said, "Madam Hashwani, I'm so sorry. Of course, I'll come to the hospital right away." "Thank you, Inspector. I'll wait for you here." I hung up and took a seat outside Rayhan's room, steeling myself for the long fight ahead. That evening, Inspector Bilal arrived, his presence reassuring. He listened patiently as I recounted every detail: the half-open drawer, the empty Velt pouches, Rayhan's confession about the loan shark, and the poisoning. He took notes, asked probing questions, and assured me he would deploy a team to track down the loan shark and recover the jewelry if possible. "Madam, we'll need formal statements from both you and your son," he said, standing with a notepad in hand. I nodded, swallowing past the lump in my throat. My world had shifted so violently in the span of 12 hours that I felt I was stranded in a nightmare. How could I, an old widow, protect my only son from a criminal underworld I barely understood? How could I find the strength to rebuild our lives when everything I held dear had been taken? I took a deep breath and faced Inspector Bilal. "I will do whatever it takes. I'll tell you everything, and I'll cooperate fully, but I want justice." My voice shook, but I spoke with conviction. I want him found. I want my jewelry back, and I want my son to know he is forgiven. But he must understand the gravity of what he's done. Inspector Bilal nodded solemnly. "We will do our best, madam. You have my word." As he left, I returned to Rayhan's bedside. He was awake, staring at the ceiling. "Ma, are you okay?" he asked softly. I smiled, forcing warmth into my expression. "I will be. We have a long road ahead, but we will get through this together. Do you understand?" He nodded. "Yes." "I'm sorry, Ma." He looked away, guilt etched on his face. "I'll make it right, I promise." I squeezed his hand. "You will, Beta. But right. Now, rest." I stood and kissed his forehead. "I'll be right outside. Don't worry." As I stepped into the hallway, the hospital lights glaring overhead, I felt a mixture of fear and resolve. My son's life and my family's legacy hung in the balance. But I was determined not to let this chapter define us. I would fight with every ounce of strength left in me. And yet, deep inside, a question gnawed at me. Could I ever truly forgive him? Could I find it in my heart to repair the bond that had been fractured by betrayal and desperation? I closed my eyes, took a trembling breath, and braced myself for what was to come. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. My heart pounded as I absorbed this. The loan shark had stalked him, learned his routine. I had believed Rayhan's promise to be careful, But I had been naive about the lengths to which someone desperate for money could go. "Inspector, do you have any idea where this man might be?" I asked, voice husky. Bilal sighed. "I'm working on that. The cafe's CCTV is limited. It only covers the entrance and the service counter, not the seating area. But I've sent a request to the city traffic surveillance team to check footage from street cameras. If I'm lucky, I can track his vehicle. Also, I learned that your son borrowed from a man who goes by Tariq Malik. The informant described him as a local minor gangster with ties to smuggling rings. He's not someone easy to find, but we have a starting point." I nodded, swallowing. "Thank you, Inspector. Please do whatever you can." He gave me a curt nod before slipping out into the corridor. I watched him go, my mind swirling. If Tariq Malik was part of a larger criminal network, then my son's crime was just a single thread in a tangled web. Extracting justice might prove more difficult than I had imagined. That night at the hospital, I sat in a stiff chair, keeping watch over Rayhan. I held his hand, willing him to drink water, promising myself I wouldn't leave his side until I knew he was stable. My phone buzzed, an incoming message from my friend Farida. I opened it. "How is Rayhan? Any news about the case?" Her words filled me with gratitude. Farida had been by my side since my husband's death. A sister not by blood but by bond. I typed a quick reply. "He's stable but weak. Inspector Bilal is on the case. I'll update you soon." Then I put the phone on silent and returned to my vigil. My mind wandered to my jewelry workshop at home. Without the stolen pieces, my business was crippled. Clients had orders pending. Some had even paid deposits. My reputation, honed over decades, was at stake. I had always been proud of my ability to support Rayhan and keep our household afloat through my craft. Now those talents felt stolen from me, as though my hands were tied. The next morning, just after sunrise, I left the hospital and headed home. The city of Lahore had begun to bustle, rickshaws honking, street vendors crying out their wares, the smell of fresh rotis baking on charcoal. As I walked down my street, my footsteps felt heavy, as though the earth itself were reluctant to hold me. Inside my home, the silence was deafening. The workshop door stood ajar, a reminder of the intruder who had accessed it. I entered, inhaling the scent of sawdust and faint traces of metal polish, scents that once brought me comfort. I knelt and ran my fingers over the empty niches where my jewelry had been displayed. The velvet linings remained, but the treasures were gone, leaving only imprints of loss. I moved to my workbench, where unfinished pieces lay, a pair of silver jumkas set with turquoise, delicate earrings waiting for their final polish, a bridal necklace that I had been crafting for a returning expatriate. Their unfinished beauty mocked me. How could I focus on new work when I had so many old memories? To grieve? I closed my eyes and recalled a lesson from years ago. A jeweler's hands must be steady, focused. I couldn't allow my sorrow to ruin the new pieces I had promised. I took a deep breath and set to work on the small tasks I could accomplish. Filing rough edges, cleaning metal, organizing gemstones. As I worked, my neighbors gathered outside, curiosity and concern etched on their faces. I could feel their eyes on me through the translucent curtains, but I ignored them. Their whispers would start soon. "Has Inspector Bilal found anything? They say the loan shark is dangerous. What if other families are at risk?" I bristled at the thought that our misfortune could become gossip. By mid-morning, Farida arrived at my doorstep, a steaming cup of chai in her hand. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile that had soothed me during countless hardships. "Amina, Beta," she said softly, pressing the cup into my hand. I wrapped my hands around the warmth, grateful for the gesture. "Farida, thank you." I managed a weak smile as I set the chai on a small wooden table. She glanced at the workshop door. "Can I come in?" I nodded, stepping aside. She crossed the threshold and took in the empty shelves, her face paling. "My heart aches for you," she said, her voice trembling. I shrugged, fighting to keep my composure. "What's done is done, but we're not without hope. Inspector, Bilal is investigating." She reached out, taking my hands in hers. "Let me help. I can spread the word among my cousins in the police force. And if there's anything I can do to bring more customers to your workshop, I will." Her determination reminded me that I wasn't alone. I chuckled, though it felt hollow. "Thank you, Farida. Just your presence is enough right now." She nodded and sat on a low stool, her gaze drifting over the workshop. "Do you think you'll start making pieces again soon?" I stared at the tools on the bench. Hammers, burnishers, tweezers. Each held the promise of creation, but also the memory of what had been taken. "It's hard to think about new work," I admitted. "Every time I touch silver, I remember what I've lost. But my clients need me. Orders are backed up, and I promise to finish them." Farida leaned forward. "Focus on one piece at a time. Let each project be a prayer for what you want returned." Her words touched something deep within me. Taking a sip of chai, I set the cup aside and reached for a sheet of sketches pinned to the wall. Designs for a kundan set necklace, a sapphire and emerald bangle set, intricate patterns inspired by Mughal palaces. I studied them, letting my mind drift into the familiar territory of creativity. The dull ache in my chest eased slightly. "All right," I said, voice firmer. "I'll start with these earrings." I pointed to a pair of silver jumkas sketched with tiny gold inlays. "They're small, but they'll remind me that beauty can be made again." Farida smiled, and together we gathered tools. I showed her how to shape the base metal, how to fuse gold granules onto silver, how to work the filigree so that each swirl looked seamless. As I worked, I felt my purpose returning. The rhythmic tapping of the hammer on the anvil steadied my breathing, and the sense of burned flux and heated metal filled me with a sense of home. Yet even as I found solace in creation, my thoughts kept drifting back to the stolen heirlooms. I wondered if they'd been sold to a pawn shop, melted down for scrap, or housed in some private collection. Each possibility felt like a fresh wound. And then there was Rayhan, recovering physically, but how would his spirit heal from this betrayal? Night arrived, and I reluctantly closed the workshop for the day. Farida helped me gather my tools and turned off the lights, leaving the room bathed in the soft glow of a single bulb. We made our way to the kitchen to prepare dinner. The familiar sounds of chopping vegetables and simmering stew brought a dull comfort, a reminder that life continued. Even amid tragedy, over dinner, Farida asked, "Do you think Rayhan will forgive himself? Do you think you can forgive him?" I paused, placing a piece of roti on my plate. The question cut deep. "I want to forgive him," I said slowly. "He's my son, and blood is thicker than debt. But the guilt he feels, I don't want him to be consumed by it. I'll forgive him, yes, but he must understand the gravity of what happened. I can't let him forget that there are consequences." Farida reached across the table, giving my hand a gentle squeeze. "You are strong, my friend. You'll guide him through this." I nodded, appreciating her faith in me. After dinner, I swept the floor and sat down to recite the evening dhikr, words of remembrance that had comforted me since childhood. The verses flowed over my lips, a steady rhythm that lulled my heart toward peace. Yet sleep eluded me. I stayed awake, mulling over plans for the next day. In the small hours of the morning, when the city was silent and only the distant call of the night watchman broke the stillness, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. A message from Inspector Bilal. My chest tightened as I opened it. "Ma'am Amina, meet me at 10 a.m. tomorrow at the local precinct. I have new information about Tariq Malik. Bring any documentation or transaction records you have of Rayhan's debts." My breath caught. Tomorrow. Tomorrow I would learn whether this nightmare would unravel into something resembling justice or spiral into deeper darkness. I reread the message, my pulse quickening. Then I whispered into the quiet, Ya Allah, guide me, show me the right path. The weight of the world rested on my shoulders. My son's recovery, our family's honor, the lost heirlooms. But I felt a spark of resolve igniting within me. I would stand tall for Rihan, for the memory of my husband and ancestors. I would pursue the truth, no matter how painful. As dawn's first light tinted the sky, I closed my phone and succumbed to a restless sleep, haunted by fractured dreams of silver and blood. When I arrived at the precinct at 10 a.m., the corridors smelled of stale coffee and old tile. The waiting area was sparse, a row of plastic chairs, a rack of outdated pamphlets, and a lone water dispenser humming in the corner. I clutched my satchel, which contained Rihan's treatment bills, bank statements, and the video footage I had requested from the cafe owner. There was also a small locked box containing a few pieces of silver that I had managed to salvage from printing errors, my only collateral. Inspector Bilal appeared from behind a door labeled Investigation Unit, Room 3. He greeted me with a nod, his expression grave. "Come in, madam," he said, leading me into a cramped office cluttered with case files, coffee-stained mugs, and a whiteboard covered in scribbles. On the wall hung a large map of the city pinned with colored pins. He gestured to a seat across from his desk. "I've found something that might help." Our traffic team retrieved footage from a street camera outside the cafe where Rayhan was last seen. We saw a gray sedan, license plate partially obscured, parked near the back entrance at almost exactly the time Rayhan left. The driver matches the description of the man with the scar. My heart thudded. A tangible lead. "Can you get a clearer view of the license plate? Anything?" He tapped a few keys on his desktop and pulled up an image. On the screen, a blurry sedan, possibly a Honda Civic from the late 2000s, glowed under a streetlight. The plate was half covered by a tree branch, but the last 3 digits were legible. 527. "That's not a lot to go on," I murmured. Inspector Bilal nodded. "But it's something." We cross-referenced registrations for vehicles ending in 527, and one owner stood out, a man named Faisal Ahmed. He has a clean record, but Faisal Ahmed also happens to be the son of Jahangir Ahmed, a local jeweler who owes shady favors to the same smuggling ring that Tariq Malik is associated with. It's likely Faisal works under his father's radar, running small errands for the criminals. A chill ran down my spine. My mind flashed to my own jewelry business. How delicate the world of precious metals could be. How easily it could become entangled with unsavory elements. And now, that world had ensnared my family. "Do you think he's linked to the stolen jewelry?" I asked, my voice tight. "He might be," Bilal replied. "We've put out notices to monitor any pawn shops or dealers who specialize in silver and semi-precious gems. If the stolen pieces surface, it's likely they'll pass through a fence like Faisal. Plus, we'll question Jahangir Ahmed, though he's proving elusive. But I suspect he's providing safe passage or laundering the goods for Tariq Malik." My stomach twisted. "What can I do? How can I help you?" He leaned back in his chair. "If you can provide any receipts or photographs of the original pieces, clear images of their unique markings, inscriptions, or imperfections, it would help us identify them if they're pawned or sold." I felt the weight of my satchel. The silver I had brought, my salvaged prototypes, felt insignificant now. "I'll gather everything I have. But will that be enough?" Bilal gave me a firm look. "It might. Also, I want you to think about anyone else who might have held a grudge against you or your family, business rivals, neighbors who envied your reputation. The theft might be more than just a means to extort money. It could be a personal vendetta." I frowned. "Business rivals?" I had always kept my interactions cordial, but jealousy can lurk beneath polite smiles. Each neighbor in my community knew of my craftsmanship. Perhaps someone coveted my success. Perhaps someone saw me as an obstacle or a target. The thought stung. "I'll think of anyone," I promised quietly. He stood and opened the door. "Thank you for coming. I'll be in touch soon." Outside the office, the hallway was still quiet. I paused, placing a hand on the cool wall. The morning sunlight streamed in through a small window, landing on the tile floor in bright patches. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. How had our lives unraveled so completely? My husband's death had been painful, but we had rebuilt from that tragedy. Now, my son lay recovering from an attempted murder, and the heritage of 3 generations of jewelry artisans was scattered like dust in the wind. And yet, some ember of hope flickered within me. I returned home and spent the afternoon going through my workshop's records. I retrieved old ledgers, client names, dates, descriptions of pieces commissioned, even hand-sketched designs showing the precise curvature of a bangle or the intricate filigree of an earring. Each ledger was a testament to years of careful work. I took photographs with my phone, zooming in on water stains, tiny tool marks, and inscriptions like the petite heart on my mother's locket that bore her initials. I also drafted a detailed list of the heirlooms: the silver locket, oval-shaped, with my parents' wedding date etched on the back; the set of emerald bangles, each stone cut in a unique trapezoid shape; the anklet with 8 dangling bells, each bell hand-hammered to produce a distinctive chime; and the 2 necklaces of pearls and coral strung so perfectly that a broken strand would reveal pinholes where each bead had been threaded. These details would matter in court or in a pawn broker's office. By evening, I had compiled everything into a small folder which I planned to deliver to Inspector Bilal the next morning. But as I finished, a sense of dread settled over me, an unspoken fear that what I had collected might not be enough. I set the folder aside and made dinner for Rayhan and me. He ate sparingly, his appetite still weak, but he spoke with a strange resolve. "Ma," he said, breaking a piece of roti, "I want to help with the investigation. If I can provide any details to Bilal, I will. I feel I owe it to you." I set down my ladle, my heart clenching. He sounded so grown, so determined to atone for his mistakes. But I also knew that my protective instincts would kick in. "Beta, you need rest," I replied, pressing a hand to his forehead. "Your body needs time to heal. Besides, you were unconscious for a day. You might not remember everything." He nodded, though I sensed a stubborn tension in his jaw. After dinner, I helped him back to his bed, adjusting the thin blanket around his shoulders. He closed his eyes, drifting into sleep almost instantly. I lingered by his side, brushing away a tear. "Rest, my son. We'll find them. We'll make this right." Night fell, and I returned to my workshop to continue working on the jumkas. The rhythmic tapping of metal on the bench was a small balm to my soul. Each hammer struck a reminder that creation could rise from destruction. After several hours, I closed the workshop once more and locked the door. Climbing the stairs to my bedroom, I found myself tormented by nightmares, visions of Rayhan lying lifeless, of silver melting into formless blobs, of the loan shark's scarred face leering over me. I awoke before dawn, sweat-soaked and heart-pounding. I knelt by my bedside and prayed until my pulse slowed. Morning arrived with a heavy scent of rain in the air. I dressed quickly in a simple salwar kameez, tucked the folder of documentation into my satchel, and set off to the precinct. The roads were slick with last night's drizzle, and as I navigated through narrow streets, my mind replayed Bilal's words: "Business rivals, neighbors who envied your reputation." I thought of the subtle glances some wealthy clients had shot me, or the mercenary whisperings of those who claimed I charged too much. Could one of them have conspired with Tariq Malik to orchestrate the theft? I arrived at the precinct, and was led to Bilal's office. He glanced at my folder, nodding approvingly. "You did well gathering these details, madam." I allowed a small smile. "I want to do everything I can." He spread the contents across his desk, photographs, ledger entries, and my handwritten list. "Now, I've called in a fingerprint analyst. We suspect Tariq's goon may have left prints on the jewelry cabinet, or even on the packaging. Also, we have a lead on Faisal Ahmed. He was seen near the Old Metal Market last night, trying to sell what looked like silver bangles to a known fence. We're tracking that clue now." A surge of hope coursed through me. "Do you think they've sold any of the heirlooms yet?" Bilal's gaze was steady. "It's possible. But if they did, the unique inscriptions you provided, like your grandmother's initials on the inside of one of the bangles, should alert anyone who inspects them carefully. Pawnshops must report transactions above a certain threshold, and with your information, we can cross-reference." I exhaled, the tension easing slightly. But then Bilal's expression shifted. "There's something else." I leaned forward. "We interviewed Jahangir Ahmed this morning. He claimed ignorance of his son's actions, that Faisal was busy with studies and helping out at the shop. But the problem is that his shop is in the same compound where Tariq's men are known to gather after dark. Surveillance shows Faisal in and out of warehouses linked to smuggling. I believe he's complicit." My stomach knotted. If the respected jeweler Jahangir was involved, it meant the criminal enterprise had roots deep in the very industry I held dear. "Inspector, do you plan to arrest him?" "It's complicated." He sighed. "Jahangir is well connected. Arresting him without ironclad evidence could lead to a scandal, tipping off the entire network. Instead, we're monitoring his shop closely, gathering evidence. So far, nothing has been moved, but we suspect he's hiding the heirlooms in a safe location. We've got an informant who believes the bangles were moved to a warehouse in the industrial district." My heart raced. "Can I accompany the team to the warehouse?" "I can help identify the pieces." Bilal hesitated. "It's a raid. It could get dangerous. I can't put you at risk." I felt anger and determination rise within me. "Inspector, if I don't see those pieces returned to me, I'll never rest. I need to be there." He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, but you must stay with the perimeter team. If anything goes wrong, you fall back immediately. Understood?" I nodded. "Understood." That evening, as the first stars appeared in the dusky sky, I joined the police convoy heading toward the industrial district. The roads were deserted, streetlights flickering on, casting long shadows across abandoned lots. The warehouse loomed. Ahead, a massive structure of corrugated metal with a single dim light above the door. My pulse hammered as the team fanned out, readying their gear. Flashlights, radios, leather gloves. Bilal approached me, stoic. "Stay close to Sergeant Salim. He'll lead you to a vantage point where you can see the crates." I swallowed, past a lump in my throat. "I'm ready." Sergeant Salim, a solid man with broad shoulders, gave me a curt nod. He led me to a spot near a stack of wooden pallets, where I crouched and peered around the corner. In the dim glow of floodlights, 2 men loaded crates onto a forklift. The crates were unmarked, but I recognized the shine of silver from a narrow crack between boards. My breath caught. Sergeant Salim tapped my shoulder. "There, the second crate from the top on the left stack. I saw a set of bangles that matched your description." I rose slowly, my heart in my throat. "They're there." Salim spoke into his radio. "We need an entry team now." Moments later, headlights illuminated the loading bay as more officers arrived. A stern voice crackled. "This is the police! Open the doors!" Inside, the men loading crates looked startled. One reached for a rifle. Shouts erupted. The air exploded with tension. "Take cover!" an officer shouted. Sergeant Salim grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a steel pillar. My pulse thundered in my ears as I huddled close. Shots rang out, sharp cracks that echoed across the warehouse walls. There was a flash of movement as the forklift operator dropped the controls and dove to the floor. "More shouts! More shots! All units, breach now!" Bilal's voice commanded. I felt the ground tremble as the door crashed open. Uniformed officers poured in, weapons at the ready. Through the open doorway, I saw men scrambling to flee toward a back exit. One man, tall, lean, with a shock of dark hair, dashed for the door, a set of bangles clutched in his hand. He turned, saw the police, and bolted. "After him!" Bilal roared. 2 officers gave chase. The next moment I heard a screech of tires as a car peeled away from the warehouse. The man leapt into the passenger seat and the driver slammed the door. They sped off into the night, sirens wailing behind them. Seconds later, a blast of light from flashbangs detonated inside, momentarily blinding me. I covered my face, my ears ringing. When the glare subsided, I saw officers swarming the crates. They pried open the wooden panels, revealing stacks of plastic bags filled with silver jewelry, some pieces tinny and worn, but others unmistakably handcrafted. My breath caught when I spotted the emerald bangles, their trapezoid stones glinting. Caught in the flicker of flashlights, I swallowed as tears welled in my eyes. But then I saw something that froze me. In one crate, the silver locket, my mother's wedding gift, its delicate chain coiled like a serpent. Next to it lay the pearl and coral necklaces, their strands jerked free from their clasps, several pearls missing. My grandmother's anklet was on top, dull from neglect, but still beautiful, its tiny bells rusted yet intact. My chest tightened. They were here. Yes, they were here. But something was wrong. Some of the pieces seemed to have been tampered with. The inscriptions on the bangle with my grandmother's name had been filed down, rendered nearly illegible. Someone had tried to erase their history. Overwhelmed, I stumbled back, clutching my satchel. A surge of rage and sorrow flooded through me. Someone had not only stolen our heritage, but desecrated it. I pressed a trembling hand to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. The officers laid handcuffs on the terrified warehouse workers, searching pockets and confiscating more contraband, silver ingots, unmarked gemstones, and counterfeit hallmarks. Inspector Bilal approached me, his face grim. In his hand was a small evidence bag containing a pair of postmarked remittances from Rehan to Tariq Malik. "They've been moving pieces for weeks," he said in a low voice. "They sold some to an export broker who ships to Dubai. But most stayed here, waiting for larger transactions." He motioned toward the crates. "You should verify your pieces." I took a deep breath and crossed to the crates. Costly rings, anklets, necklaces. I recognized many, but I also noticed unfamiliar items, likely stolen from other victims. My heart ached as I sifted through. A child's tiny silver bracelet missing a heart-shaped charm, an intricately carved gold toe ring that belonged to a neighbor. And then, there it was, my mother's locket, its tiny hinge still clunky from disuse. I cradled it in my palm, tears streaming down my face. I opened it reverently. Inside, a faded photograph of my parents on their wedding day. The memory hit me like a physical blow. My mother's gentle smile, my father's proud stance, the jasmine in her hair. I heard footsteps behind me. Inspector Bilal stood silently, giving me space. I pressed the locket to my heart, my fingers trembling as I rethreaded the chain through my fingers. Beside me, the emerald bangles glittered beneath the harsh light. 2 matched sets, though a few stones were missing, chipped. I ran my fingers across the surface, where each stone would have nestled perfectly against silver. I recalled how those bangles clicked together around my wrists as I cooked, as I prayed, as I walked through bazaars. But then I noticed something else. Several of the silver necklaces I had recognized were bent and rifled, their clasps broken, as though someone had pried at them for individual beads. The pearl necklace was fractured. 20 pearls were missing, leaving gaps in the strand. My grandmother's anklet, One of the bells was gone. Someone had sold off parts of it to maximize profit. I lifted my gaze to Bilal. They destroyed them, I whispered, voice trembling. They tore apart each piece to sell the gems separately. My family's memories, broken. His eyes were compassionate. We'll find the rest. But some damage can't be undone. I closed my eyes, feeling a raw emptiness. I know. But I need to know who ordered this. Tariq's men are pawns. They work for someone bigger. Bilal nodded. We've got warrants to search Jahangir, Ahmed's shop at dawn. We'll question him about these findings, but he'll likely claim ignorance. I clenched my fists, fury surging. He can't hide behind his reputation. Bilal's expression softened. Sometimes the system's slow, but we're making progress. For now, let me secure the evidence. You should return home and rest. I nodded numbly. I tucked the locket into my satchel. My most cherished possession returned. But as I left the warehouse behind me, I felt my resolve harden. The discovery was bittersweet. I had my family's heirloom back, but it was forever marred, a testament to greed and cruelty. Rebuilding wouldn't just be about finding the missing pearls or the erased inscriptions. It would be about mending fractured trust and ensuring my son and our legacy rose from this devastation. As I drove home under the moonlit sky, the city lights blurred past. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Rihan. Mama, I heard the news from Dad's friend. They found some of the jewelry. You're safe, right? I stared at the screen for a moment, tears spilling onto my cheeks. I typed back. Yes, Beta. Some pieces are recovered. But the road ahead is still long. Sleep now. I'll tell you everything tomorrow. I placed the phone on silent and exhaled. Tomorrow I would face my son with news. Some good, much still, to be done. That night, as I lay awake in bed, I whispered a prayer. Ya Allah, give me strength for tomorrow. Help me guide my son back to the light and help me rebuild what has been broken. And somewhere, in the dark, I swore I heard a voice answering, I will, Amina. Cliffhanger. The next morning, as I prepared to meet Inspector Bilal again, a frantic knock at my door startled me. I opened it to find my neighbor, Wahida, pale and trembling. She clutched her young daughter's hand tightly, her eyes wide, with panic. Amina, you must come quickly, she gasped. They've taken my baby. I felt the world shift beneath my feet. What do you mean? Wahida's tears fell freely. Last night, a man. He said he was from the hospital. He claimed there was something wrong with her and he needed to take her for tests. I handed her to him, and he drove away. Now, no one knows where he took her. My heart raced as I realized that the same criminal network might be targeting vulnerable families across our neighborhood. And now, a child was missing. I grabbed my shawl. Stay here, I said, determination coursing through me. I'll call Inspector Bilal immediately. As Wahida collapsed in sobs, I rushed out into the humid morning air, my pulse thrumming. My fight for justice had just expanded to save an innocent child, and I feared this was only the beginning. The humid air in the morning was thick with foreboding as I burst from my front door, my heart pounding like a rickshaw engine on a steep incline. Wahida's tear-streaked face and her stolen baby's terrified wails still echoed in my mind. I had barely registered Inspector Bilal's scheduled meeting when I had run out, driven by the urgent realization that a child's life hung in the balance. Wahida, Beta, tell me everything from the beginning, I demanded, my voice trembling despite my efforts to remain firm. She swayed, her lips quivering as she clutched her 3-year-old daughter, Zoya, pressed close to her chest. Yet it wasn't Zoya beside her. It was her older sister, the 2-year-old Amina, who was missing. Zoya had been spared only because she was already in the neighborhood's community center, receiving free breakfast while her mother had hurried to the hospital to check on her own medical tests. No, Mama Amina, Wahida cried, confusion and grief mingling in her voice. I left both my girls sleeping on the cot. I went to the kitchen for just a moment. Zoya woke and went to the community center like she always does. But when I returned, Amina was gone. The front gate was slightly open, just a crack. I thought she had followed Zoya, but she wasn't there. Then that man pulled up in a black van, wearing a surgical mask and gloves, told me there was an emergency at the hospital, that Amina needed tests. He showed me a phony hospital ID. I gave him the baby. Then he sped off. Wahida's sobs shook her body. I wrapped an arm around her, swallowing back my own panic. My blood felt like rainwater, murky and cold, pooling at my feet. Did you see the license plate? Anything about the van or the man's voice? I asked softly. She shook her head. I only saw the black van. No markings, no number I could remember. He wore gloves and a mask, so I couldn't see his face. Her breath hitched as she cried out Zoya's name and clutched the empty blanket that should have wrapped Amina. A shard of desperation cut through me. Wahida, we need to go to the police. Now. Tariq Malik's network is getting bolder. This is child kidnapping. Bilal will know what to do. She nodded, still gasping, and I led her to my car, shielding her from gawking neighbors. Word would spread quickly if we didn't act with urgency. At the police station, the morning sun unfeelingly beat down on the courtyard as we hurried inside. Bilal looked up from his desk, concern flickering across his eyes when he saw us. Amina, what's happened? He asked, rising from his chair. Wahida collapsed onto the nearest bench, her body racked with sobs. I took a moment to steady myself, glancing at Bilal. Inspector Jadi, that man's name who kidnapped my son's friend's baby, is part of Tariq Malik's extended circle. He used a fake hospital ID. We must find the child before it's too late. My voice held urgency I hadn't known I possessed. Bilal's face darkened. He closed the folder he was reviewing and motioned for us to follow him into his office. Tell me everything. I recapped what Wahida had told me, stopping only to dab at my tears. Bilal's jaw clenched, and he steepled his fingers as I spoke. When I finished, he nodded gravely. Jadi is a low-level enforcer in Malik's gang. If he's taken this child, he might use her as leverage to negotiate with Wahida's husband, who disappeared a year ago under suspicious circumstances. Or he may be trafficking the child. We can't rule anything out. My heart sank. Trafficking. The thought of Amina sold off or forced into some life of torment made bile rise in my throat. Bilal stood and snapped his fingers. Sergeant Salim, get me all records on Jadi. Check his last known locations, his phone records, associates, everything. And send out all units. Alert all hospitals to be on the lookout for a toddler, approximate height 2 feet, wearing a pink frock with white polka dots. Neighbors in your area, inform them to be vigilant. We'll set up checkpoints. Salim. And 2 constables bustled out of the office, radios crackling in their hands. Bilal turned to me. Madam Amina, I need you to coordinate with local families, get lists of any children who went missing recently, if there's any pattern. And, if you know Malik's network, the families they've targeted, alert them immediately. I nodded, the shock giving way to clarity. I needed to help track this network from within. Tariq Malik had once nearly ended Rayhan's life. Now he threatened a helpless innocent. This fight was personal. I had to act. Leaving the station, I decided to return home to gather my strongest allies. First was Farida. Her network among women in the city was vast. I called her with trembling fingers. Farida, it's Amina. Amina, Wahida's daughter, has been kidnapped. I need your help to alert our community. Farida's voice grew rigid with alarm. Amina! Oh my God! I'll gather the Women's Council and post notices everywhere. We'll form search parties and door-to-door checks. Where is Malik's gang based now? I rattled off details from Bilal, Khan Market hideouts, abandoned warehouses in Gulberg, known routes along Multan Road. She made notes. "Meet me in 2 hours at my house," she said. "We'll rally as many people as we can." I relayed everything to Wahida, who clung to my arm as though I was her lifeline. "Be strong, Beta," I whispered, squeezing her hand. "We will find her." At home, I typed up a notice. Missing child, Amina, 2 years old, approx. 2 feet tall, wearing pink frock with white polka dots, light brown hair, last seen yesterday at 7 a.m. Family from Johar Town. Kidnapped by a man posing as a medical professional in a black van. Any information, contact Inspector Bilal at 0321XXX immediately. I printed 50 copies, pinned some on the community's notice boards, handed others to Farida to distribute door to door. I pounded on doors as I walked, urging worried parents to check their locked gates, keep children close. By midday, word had spread like wildfire. Neighbors scanned every black van, called out to suspicious men wearing gloves or masks. The local imam urged parishioners during Friday prayers to help search and pray for Amina's safe return. By late afternoon, reports trickled in. A toddler fitting Amina's description was spotted near Itra Bazaar, then near a petrol station on Firozapur Road. Each sighting turned out to be a false alarm. Many little girls wore pink frocks, and Abdul Rahman, the petrol pump attendant, confirmed that no toddler left in a van by a masked man had passed through. Yet there was one lead that gave a spark of hope. A shopkeeper in Itra claimed to have seen a black van idling by his scrap metal yard around 9:30 a.m., with 2 men loading a large crate into the back. Inside the crate, he thought he saw a small shape, like a toddler curled in a blanket. He watched them leave, heading north toward the Lahore-Sheikhupura road. When he called the police, the van was long gone. Bilal's team scrambled to set up checkpoints along Sheikhupura Road. I joined Farida at the local madrasa's community center late that evening. The room was crammed with anxious faces, women clutching children, men standing in anxious clusters, roaming eyes scanning the street outside. We distributed more flyers, gathered drivers who occasionally plied that route, and asked them to report any van matching the description immediately. The tension in the room was so thick, I felt as though it might choke me. As dusk settled, I returned home, my footsteps weary. Rayhan was in his bed, the late afternoon sun slanting across his face as he dozed. Metaphorically, I could feel the burden of his crime and my own failures closing around me. He stirred when I entered the room. "Ma, how did the search go?" he asked, frowning as he rubbed his eyes. I sat on the bed beside him, pushing tears behind my eyes. Good news and bad news. I relayed the scrapyard sighting and how Bilal's men were on their way there now. Rayhan's face went pale. "Should help?" he said, sitting up, wincing from the lingering pain of the poison. "If Tariq Malik got her, that's on me too." His voice cracked. I shouldn't have turned to him. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your guilt won't help now. Right now, we have to focus on finding Amina. I want you to rest, Beta. Once you can walk, you'll join Farida and me in the search. For now, rest." He nodded, eyes glistening, but resigned. As I tucked him in, I felt a flicker of admiration for his willingness to take responsibility, even as he had caused this chain reaction through his own desperation. Late that night, I returned to my workshop, unable to sleep. The heirlooms, some restored, some still missing, caught my eye from beneath a sheet on the workbench. I ran a fingertip over the emerald bangles, their edges still rough from the hasty filing. My mind raced. If Tariq's men had broken into a child's life so callously, what was to stop them from returning to finish the destruction of my family's legacy? I took out the silver locket, pressed the photograph of my parents to my lips, and whispered a prayer. "Protect Amina, Ya Allah." When I returned to sleep, it was a fitful drift, haunted by nightmares of masked men wielding sanitizer-soaked cloths against children's mouths, dragging them into vans that dissolved like shadows in the night. Dawn arrived with a furious storm. Thunder rolled across the sky. Raindrops pelted the rooftops. The rain made the search more difficult. Muddy roads, obscured sightlines. Frightened, people huddled inside their homes, but it also meant fewer vehicles on the road, and Bilal's teams focused their efforts on Sheikhupura Road. By early morning, the scrapyard was crawling with police officers with search dogs, flashlights in hand. The yard was a warren of rusted cars, metal piles, and narrow alleys between sheds. I joined Bilal and Farida as they stood beneath a heavy cloudburst, eyes scanning the ground for clues. The yard's owner, a wiry man named Hassan, met us at the gate, shivering. His eyes were haunted. "I swear I saw them around 9:30, he repeated. "Two men, black van. I thought they were dumping some scrap. Then I heard a baby crying. I froze, and when I came closer, they slammed the crate shut and threw it into the van. They left so fast I could not record the license plate." Bilal cupped his chin. "Any cameras in the area?" Hassan nodded. "Yes, but they are old. They only record every 10 minutes, and they shut off at midnight to save power. I turned them back on last night after I heard news, but the 9:30 slot should be there. Follow me." We splashed toward the small guard shack where accumulators powered the cameras. The flickering monitors displayed grainy images from before. The storm. Metal stacks, a cow grazing in a corner, the back of the crate stacked on a pallet. The timestamp glowed, 9:30 a.m. precisely. Bilal zoomed in, but the image remained grainy. A toddler's hand peered through a gap at the top of the crate, a single pink sleeve and a tiny fist. My breath caught. They shoved the crate onto a trolley and trundled it to the back entrance, Bilal said softly, pointing. "It was loaded onto the van." Farida frowned. "Any sign of the van's plates?" Bilal shook his head. "No, it had tinted windows, no unique markings." He straightened. "Hashwani, do you know the road well enough to suggest a likely route?" he asked me. Despite the pounding rain, I leaned closer to the screen. Below the camera angle, I recognized a faint outline, a cluster of low-slung buildings, a cluster of workshops and warehouses. If they were heading north, they would reach the Canal Bund Road, then cross onto Raiwind Road. Likely they would avoid main highways to evade the checkpoints. "I think they're heading toward the Canal Bund, then onto the old Raiwind Road," I said, the words hot on my tongue. Bilal nodded. "Good. Salim, alert units along that route. We'll split into teams. One follows the wet Canal Bund, the other watches the factory area at Kotlakpat. This terrain is remote." We moved out, slogging through the muddy ground. I slipped on rain-soaked footprints and caught myself as an officer extended a hand to assist. Farida stayed close, her face set in grim determination. We fanned out in pairs, calling potential witnesses to see if they had spotted the black van crossing the Canal Bund Bridge at the eastern crossing. We questioned drivers of tractors, rickshaw drivers making early deliveries, even two young men fishing off the Bund. They fled when they saw us. An hour passed with no credible leads, until Sergeant Salim's voice crackled over the radio. "I've got something. A black van, license plate BC 527, heading toward Kotlakpat bypass. Driver was identified by an attendant at the canal-side dhaba. He said 3 men were with him, one held a crate covered with a blanket. They didn't stop." Bilal's eyes narrowed. "That's the plate's last 3 digits. BC 527. Go after them, but proceed carefully. They may have extra hostiles." We hopped into 2 police SUVs, side by side, and roared down the muddy track, headlights cutting through the torrential rain. The van's taillights glowed red in the distance, weaving through sparse traffic onto the bypass. Salim's team fell in behind, lights flashing, sirens muted to avoid tipping off the children in the crate. As we neared Kot Lakpat bypass, the van swerved onto a side track leading to an abandoned textile mill, a hulking structure, broken. Windows, rusted gates. It was perfect for hiding. We exchanged looks, adrenaline surging. If the child was inside, we had to act fast. Bilal raised a hand, signaling a halt. We dismounted and moved silently, weapons drawn, hearts slamming inside our chests. Through a side window, I saw two men carrying a crate into the building's loading bay. Each man wore a surgical mask. The atmosphere was oppressive. Water dripped from the corrugated roof, forming rivulets along the concrete floor. The crate, wrapped in a torn pink blanket, sat on a wooden pallet. Bilal whispered commands into his mic. "Breach north entrance in 30 seconds. On my signal." I felt my pulse pound so loudly I feared it would betray my position. Farida stood beside me, eyes fixed on the crate. Moments later, the wall of the mill's loading bay erupted in a thunderous crash. CS gas canisters landed inside with loud thumps. Shouts rose as men scattered, coughing, reeling from the irritant. The crate toppled, and through the haze of gas, I saw a small arm flail. "Cover me!" Bilal shouted as he raced forward, gun raised. I sprinted, my chest heaving. As the gas stung my eyes, I fought to stay focused on Amina's tiny hand peeking. From the crate's corner, a figure lunged toward me, a man in a surgical mask, a glint of metal in his hand. I dodged, crashing onto wet concrete. Through tears, I grabbed a loose plank and swung, the dull thud echoing as it struck his arm. He yelped, dropped the plank, and retreated into the haze. Bilal and his team surged in. I crawled toward the crate, arms shaking uncontrollably. Farida was at my side, pulling the lid open. Inside, Amina lay curled, eyes closed, breaths shallow but alive. Her pink frock was smeared with mud, but she was alive. I reached into the crate and lifted her to my chest, tears flowing freely as her tiny arms wrapped around my neck. The world seemed to dissolve into static. Rain, gas, shouts of officers calling, "Medic!" Someone rushed a medic forward. They quickly checked the toddler, whose eyes fluttered, and a small whimper escaped her. The medic nodded. She'd be fine. I held Amina close, rocking her gently as Bilal came to stand beside me. He gave me a curt nod, grudging relief. "We've got 3 suspects inside. They're outnumbered. You did well, Madam Amina." I exhaled, my chest heaving. Amina's head rested against my shoulder, tiny hands clutching my dress. I looked at Farida, who offered a small, exhausted smile. Then I looked at Bilal, determination blazing in my eyes. "Find Tariq Malik," I said, voice steely. "This network ends now." He nodded. "We will, insha'Allah. For now, get her home safely." That night, as I watched over Amina in Wahida's arms, sleeping peacefully in the pink frock, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Rehan. "Mama, I'm worried about Tariq Malik. I found out something that might lead to him. Are you okay? I want to tell you right now." My breath caught. Rehan had been seeking information while recovering. I handed Amina to Wahida, who held her tight, an expression of pure relief on her face. I typed back, "I'm fine. Meet me at home. We'll talk." Then I placed the phone on silent and turned to Farida. "Malik's network is down, at least for now, but Malik himself is still out there." She nodded, exhaustion in her eyes. As I prepared to return home, a final shiver of dread ran through me, knowing that even though we had saved Amina, greater danger still lurked ahead. Tariq Malik had felt the sting of defeat, and when a man like him was cornered, he fought back with the ferocity of a cornered wolf. Tomorrow, Rehan and I would piece together his intelligence. We would draw the final map leading to Malik's location. But tonight, with Amina safe, the darkness felt suffocating, as though it whispered, the end was not yet written. Cliffhanger. When I arrived home, Rayhan rushed to the door, his face pale. He handed me a folded slip of paper with a hastily scrawled message. "Meet me at the old railway station tonight at midnight. Come alone, or next victim will be someone you love." A thunderclap rattled the windows as I stared at the note, my heart pounding in my ears. Tariq Malik had issued a direct challenge: save yourself and face him on his terms, or watch our world crumble completely. And in the distant rumble of rain, I felt the storm of fate tightening around us all. To be continued in Part 4. The note trembled in my hand as midnight spread its cloak across Lahore's ancient streets. The raindrops tapped a mournful rhythm on my window panes, echoing the turmoil in my heart. Rayhan's summons to meet Tariq Malik at the old railway station felt like a trap poised to consume me. Yet I was determined. No one would threaten my family and walk away unscathed. I sat at my kitchen table for what felt like hours, studying the note's jagged lettering, trying to discern any clues. Possible. Slip of the pen revealing Malik's location or next victim. But there was nothing beyond a direct warning. I could not ignore it. Tariq Malik might be powerful, but he depended on fear. I would not cower. When dawn finally broke, I was still at the table, bars of gray light pushing through the curtains. I clutched a warm cup of chai, hoping its warmth would steal my nerves. Rayhan stirred from his half-sleep on the sofa, looking pale under the morning light. "Ma?" he mumbled. I offered him the chai. "We need to talk." He sat up, pulling, the blanket tighter around his shoulders. "I saw the note on your dresser. I didn't want to worry you." Tears stung my eyes as I handed him the note. He read it, his face paling by the second. "Malik's desperate," he whispered. "He's threatening us because we disrupted his operations." Anger surged through me. "He'll regret this. You led me into this world when you borrowed from him. Now we'll finish what you started." Rayhan nodded, determination glinting in his eyes despite the circles beneath them. "I have information that might help." I accessed my email from the day I first contacted Malik. In one message, he mentioned a drop-off point for shipments, an abandoned grain silo near Rywind Road. He said, burn the books if his demands weren't met. "I think he keeps key gang members there." My breath caught. That silo could be the heart of his clandestine network. If we stormed it, and if he was armed, there would be danger. But the alternative was allowing him to roam free. Innocents would continue to suffer. I squeezed Rayhan's hand. "We'll go tonight." The day was a blur of preparation. I visited Farida and briefed her on our plan. She brought supplies, flashlights, first aid items, extra kurtas, and sturdy shoes. Outside, the rains continued, turning streets into rivers, washing away the grime of the city. The storm mirrored my own swirling emotions: fear, anger, determination, sorrow. As dusk approached, I returned home to change into a simple blue shalwar kameez, one I could move freely in. I fastened a pendant around my neck that once belonged to my mother, a silver crescent moon studded with tiny jades. It felt like armor against the night's encroaching darkness. Rayhan was ready, dressed in a nondescript black kurta and jeans. He had one of Bilal's unmarked police radios clipped to his belt. He hesitated when he saw me approach. "Be careful, Ma," he said, voice choked with emotion. "I don't want to lose you." I cupped his face in my hands, blinking back tears. "You're my son. Whatever I do for you, and for everyone else he's hurting. We do this together." He wrapped me in a hug, and I felt his warmth calm the storm within me for a moment. The ride to the old railway station was tense. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but the sky remained slate gray. I gripped the edge of the seat, listening for the screech of wheels on wet asphalt. Rayhan drove with a steady determination. We passed shuttered shops and silent rickshaws pulled under the shelter of broken awnings. Finally, we turned onto the gravel path leading to Lahore Junction's old freight yard. Rusted tracks snaked into the darkness, half swallowed by tall grasses and weeds. The platform was deserted. No vendors, no passengers, only the distant hum of a diesel locomotive warming up. I felt a prickle of unease. The station's old lampposts flickered, and shadows pooled where cracked concrete lay broken. Memories of my childhood flickered. I used to accompany my father to the station when he was alive, carrying vegetables to sell on his bicycle. How did this place, once filled with life and promise, become the stage for a meeting with a criminal mastermind? Rehan parked the car half a block away. We approached on foot, huddled beneath black umbrellas as we neared the platform. The only other presence was a lone figure seated on a bench under a flickering light, a tall man draped in a dark shawl, head bowed, hands clasped. I dared to hope it might be someone else. But as we drew closer, recognition flared. The man's jagged scar snaked across his cheek, rising to his sunken temple. Tariq Malik lifted his head slowly. His cold, black eyes met mine, and his lips curved into a thin smile. He stood, the shadows shifting around him like a cloak. A scarf covered his mouth, but the glint of his gold ring on one finger was unmistakable. "So you came," he said in a low voice. I swallowed, muscles tensing. "We have no choice," I replied, stepping forward. My hand hovered near the small pepper spray I had tucked into my sleeve. He chuckled softly. "Such spirit. I like that in a woman. But tonight, spirit will not save you." Before I could respond, a sudden flare of headlights lit up the far end of the platform. Around us, shadows of men wearing surgical masks advanced, some carrying steel pipes, others hefting wooden clubs. Bilal's team emerged from the darkness, weapons drawn, uniforms shining wet in the dripping light. Malik's men hesitated, their confidence wavering. Rehan stepped forward, voice loud and firm. "This ends tonight, Malik. Surrender or face the consequences." Malik's smile grew thin. He lifted a hand, signaling his men. Instantly, the crates and tarpaulins behind them rustled, revealing guns gleaming under the station lights. I heard a stunned gasp from one of Bilal's officers. My heart pounded. This could become a shootout at any moment. If an innocent stray bullet flew, it could kill any of us. But then Malik spoke, voice cold as ice. "I surrender." The station fell into shocked silence. His men exchanged uncertain glances. Some looked ready to run, others too afraid to move. Bilal raised an eyebrow, wariness in his gaze. "Don't even think of playing games," Bilal said, leveling his pistol at Malik. "One false move, and you're dead." Malik stayed perfectly still, head bowed. After what felt like an eternity, he raised his hands. His men lowered their guns, too. Rehan let out a shaky breath, and I felt sweat bead on my forehead despite the night's chill. Bilal motioned for his men. "Search them," he ordered. 2 officers moved to frisk Malik and his henchmen. I stood behind Bilal, eyes locked on Malik's face. Danger still simmered beneath his calm exterior. Moments later, Malik's phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out with deliberate slowness, thumbed at the screen. An officer snatched it from him. Bilal flipped it open, brows knitting as he read a single line of a text message. "The kid is under our control. If you betray us, she dies." My breath caught. There was no mention of the grain silo. Malik had always threatened bigger games when cornered. My mind raced. Could it be Amina? Had they captured her again? My pulse hammered so loudly I feared Bilal and Rehan would hear it. Bilal's voice cut through my panic. "Step back, all of you." He handed the phone to an officer to inspect. Another officer cuffed Malik's hands behind his back, while 2 others subdued his remaining men. I turned to Rehan. "Check if that text is from Tariq's number." He nodded, stepping toward the officer with the phone. Seconds later, Rehan returned, face white as linen. It's from a local number, registered to Jahangir Ahmed's warehouse. It's not Tariq's usual phone. Someone has moved Amina. They tricked us. Anger and terror surged through me. They have Amina. Malik? Or someone else? Bilal crouched beside the confiscated phones, flipping through messages. I'm sending for backup to search the grain silo. I'll detain Malik and his men, but we have to move quickly. We can't let the trail go cold. Rayhan grabbed a baton from an officer's belt and pounded Malik's shoulder. Where is the child? If she's harmed, I swear. Malik merely shrugged, unmoved. Not my concern. I delivered her to a buyer last night. Check the urgent shipment records at Ahmed's warehouse. You'll find who arranged it. My breath hitched. Ahmed, as in the jeweler? Bilal's jaw clenched. Yes. That son of his, Faisal Ahmed, and Tariq have deep ties. We'll head to the warehouse now. I glanced at Rayhan, then Malik. We go now, I whispered. Bilal frowned at Malik. Anything else we should know? Malik smirked, twisting his head to look at me. Watch your back, Amina. Saving the baby won't save you from the debts you owe. My skin crawled as I turned away, refusing to let his threat linger in my mind. We had no time. The drive to Jahangir Ahmed's warehouse was fraught with tension. I sat in the back seat of a police SUV, clutching the seat's edge as Rayhan and Bilal exchanged grim looks. My thoughts raced. Was Amina already sold? If so, where? I prayed that the buyer might be some desperate family, and that the news of the raid at the mill would deter them from harming her. As we neared the warehouse compound in Kotlakpat, I recognized its hulking facade. Chain-link fences, barbed wire, and a large red-painted gate with the faded word Ahmed stenciled above. The streetlights glared down on the rain-slicked pavement. The police convoy slowed, and Bilal's team fanned out, weapons at the ready. Bilal tapped his radio. Team Alpha, circle east side. Team Bravo, south entrance. I'll go in from the front gate with Salim. Rehan and I joined Bilal and Salim. The gate creaked as Bilal forced it open. Inside, the yard was littered with wooden crates and pallets. Flickers of light from broken windows revealed glimpses of crates stacked inside. The air smelled of rust and old oil. Bilal whispered into his radio. Everyone in position. Then he gripped Rayhan's wrist. Stay close. We crept forward, boots splashing in puddles. At the main entrance, the steel door was ajar. Bilal slid inside, Rayhan and I following, scanning the dimly lit hall. The corridor led to an open storage area with 20-foot ceilings, crates littered, the floor, and a faint hum suggested machinery deeper inside. Search every crate, Bilal ordered quietly. They could have hidden her anywhere. I crouched by a crate labeled, Furniture, do not tip. I noticed fresh mud at the base. As I pried the lid, my heart plummeted at the sight of bundled blankets, too thick for a baby to be hidden, inside safely. I stepped back, shaking my head. Rayhan moved to the next crate. I joined him, hands trembling. He lifted a plank, revealing folded tarps. No baby. My heart clenched at each empty crate. Suddenly, the sound of boots on metal grated in the distance, voices speaking in hurried Urdu. Two of Malik's men had entered from a side corridor. One held a small, pink-patterned blanket, Amina's. The other carried a satchel. I exchanged a look with Rayhan and Bilal. Bilal signaled us to flank from the opposite corridor while he held his position. My pulse pounded. Rayhan took a breath, then charged forward. I followed, fists clenched, ready to fight. As the henchman rounded the corner, Rayhan tackled one to the floor. I lunged at the other, knocking the satchel from his grasp. He tried to reach for his gun, but I hit him in the wrist. A brutal scuffle ensued, fists and boots colliding. The man I tackled fought back fiercely, yanking at my hair. Panic surged as he bent me backward, ready to land a punch to my face. In that moment, I remembered my grandmother's teachings. Stay focused. Use your momentum. I twisted, landing, an elbow strike to his ribs. He gasped, staggering back. Rayhan roared as he pinned the other man down. Bilal's team swarmed the corridor, weapons drawn. The two men were handcuffed in moments. Breathless, Rayhan searched their pockets and found a crumpled receipt. Payment received, delivered infant, 30,000 rupees, buyer unknown. Time, 1:15 a.m., location, A Street, H Block, Model Town. My breath caught. Model Town was a residential area 2 miles away, packed with buses and shops open late. It was entirely possible Amina was still alive, somewhere in that labyrinth. Bilal's eyes sharpened. Move out, now. He led us out of the warehouse as officers secured the two men. I followed Rayhan, who looked at me, relief mingling with determination. We had to find her before dawn. The drive to Model Town under the moonlit sky felt suffocating. Narrow lanes, food carts closed, and occasional stray dogs scavenging under streetlights. We paused near A Street, shop fronts shuttered, a few lanterns glowing. I clutched Rayhan's hand, my pulse racing. Bilal stepped out, scanning the street. I noticed a small crowd gathered near the corner by a cramped dhaba. Smoke curled from a tandoor oven inside. A thin stream of steam rose from a tea kettle, carried away in the cool breeze. A woman in a faded pink shawl approached, eyes wide with fear. "Did you find her?" Her voice trembled. She could be Amina's buyer, or just a witness. Bilal knelt. "Ma'am, we need your help. Did you see a man leave here early this morning with a child wrapped in a blanket?" Her face went pale. "Yes, sir. I saw a young man, mid-20s, come out holding a bundle." He hurried toward Gulberg's direction. "I thought he was taking his daughter to a play area." Rayhan's heart sank. Gulberg was a maze of lanes and upscale apartments. If he headed there with a child, finding him would be near impossible by foot. "Any description?" Bilal asked. Rising, she nodded. He wore a gray hoodie, dark jeans, and his face was hidden by a black scarf. He spoke to me briefly. "We've family in Gulberg, need to drop her off." I thought he was telling the truth. Bilal snagged his radio. "Units, Gulberg. Check all routes from Model Town to Gulberg, especially BLVD Road. Look for a man." Matching that description, carrying a child in a pink blanket. Rayhan and I followed Bilal down A Street, wading past garbage heaps, praying that Amina was still safe. My mind swirled. What kind of father sold his grandchild? Who was hiding this network? We reached a small intersection where a battered rickshaw sat. Bilal hailed the driver. "Brother, did you see anyone heading this way around 1:30 a.m.? The driver tapped his head. "Yes, sir. I saw a young man. His face was covered. He paid me 50 rupees to take him halfway into Gulberg." He pointed across the road. "He left this rickshaw in a side lane near K Block." Bilal nodded, dropping a 50 into the driver's hand. "Thank you. Stay here." The four of us, Bilal, Rayhan, Farida, and I, raced toward K Block. The narrow lane was lined with graffiti-sprayed walls, crumbling bricks, and half-finished construction. Overhead wires tangled like vines. No sign of the rickshaw or the man. Bilal raised his radio. "Alpha team, any sight of the suspect?" "Static then." "Negative, sir." "No sign in K Block. We're checking the next lane over." My heart pounded. Gulberg's blocks were a maze. K Block would lead to L and M blocks, interspersed with upscale shops and deserted lanes. The dawn's first rays were creeping in. If the child was out in the open, she would freeze or cry. We needed to find her. Rayhan's voice shook. "Ma, I placed a hand on his jaw. "Stay focused, Beta. She's still out there." We split up, 4 sets of eyes scanning every dark corner, every doorway. I approached a small kiosk wedged between 2 shops, a few pakoras left over on a tray, a dim filament bulb blinking. I stepped inside, the air, smelling of oil and stale chai. A child's pink shoe lay forgotten in a corner, a scrap of color in the drabness. My breath caught. "Bilal?" I called softly into the night as I rose, indicating the shoe. He dashed over, his torch illuminating the dusty floor. "This belongs to her," I whispered, pointing. He picked it up carefully, as though it were made of glass. "Check nearby rooms," he instructed. "She can't be far." We moved down the lane, my fingers brushing against walls damp with dew. The sky's pale blue haze glimmered overhead. Then I heard it, a faint cry. My heart leaped. "Amina?" I called, voice high and urgent. The cry came again, faint but unmistakable. We followed the sound to a battered door set off a narrow alley. Bilal kicked it open. Inside was a dilapidated servant's quarters, cracks in the walls, a single cot, a charpoy frame missing its ropes. In the corner, huddled under a threadbare shawl, was Amina. She stared up with wide, dark eyes, her face streaked with tears. I dropped to my knees and scooped her into my arms. "Amina, it's okay. Beta, you're safe now." Her tiny body shook as she clung to me, her soft sobs muffled against my shoulder. The relief was so overwhelming that tears streamed down my cheeks. Rayhan knelt beside us, gently brushing Amina's cheek. Bilal stood guard at the door. "We'll take her to a doctor right away," he said over his shoulder. I nodded, still holding Amina as though I feared she might vanish if I let go. Farida approached, her face a mask of relief and exhaustion. "I'll stay here till you call if everything's okay." I embraced her. "Thank you, Farida." The drive back to the hospital was quiet. Amina nestled against me, eyes lolling in drowsy contentment. My heart ached with gratitude. Rayhan sat beside us, replaying the events in his mind. He had rallied when I was away at the station, piecing together Malik's moves even from his hospital bed. The doctor examined Amina, pronouncing her healthy but malnourished and scared. He ran some tests, gave her fluids, and fed her milk. She wrapped her tiny hand around my finger, and I felt the warmth spread through my chest. As dawn broke fully, I took a moment to breathe. Tariq Malik's network was unraveling. We had recovered the baby. Next step was to secure Malik's conviction and dismantle the smuggling ring. But first, I had to face Malik himself. After Amina rested, I told Bilal, "I need to go to the station. I need to confront Malik myself, look into his eyes and see his soul. I want him to know the pain he's caused." He nodded. "I'll have one of our men bring him." When we arrived at the precinct, Malik was sitting in an interrogation room shackled to the chair. His eyes fixed on me, his gaze unreadable. I stepped into the room. Amina tucked against my chest in a blanket. Malik's lips curved into a smirk when he saw Amina's pink frock. "She looks like she's belonged here more than with you," he said, voice venomous. I felt bile rise. "Your threats don't scare me, Malik. You thought you could break me, but you failed. You nearly ended my son's life, stole my heritage, and kidnapped an innocent child. Now you'll pay. She's safe because of me, but your games end here." He shrugged. "You think you've won, but I'll rot in jail, and when I get out, I'll find you." I met his gaze. "By then, I'll have rebuilt my life. Your reach ends tonight." His eyes flicked to Amina, tears brimming. "You can't. Love her as much as I hate you." I dropped my gaze to him. "You're right. I can't hate you that much. I feel pity. You wasted your life hurting others. And now?" I gently lifted Amina out of my shawl. The little girl's eyes tracked Malik, her tiny fingers gripping the blanket. She looked at me, then at Malik, and whimpered. Malik's expression shifted. Shock. That love could be weaponized against him. I placed Amina into Rayhan's arms, then stepped toward Malik's chair. The last time I saw him alive was when he stood on that train platform in Dhaka years ago, an enforcer for a bigger network, forcing migrants onto rickety freight cars. He hadn't changed. I sank into the seat across from him. Your network is gone. Your friends are in jail, your children are safe, and you're alone. He sank his head. I have nothing now. I felt a flicker of sympathy, fury, and pity warred within me, but I held my face still. He had to face consequences. Bilal entered with 2 officers, and Malik was taken back to his cell. As the door clanged, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Outside, Rayhan and Amina waited. Amina's big brown eyes lit up when she saw me. She reached out with chubby hands, pressing her face into my shoulder. In that tiny gesture, I sensed a future, a chance for a new beginning. Rayhan smiled, tears in his eyes. Ma, thank you. Kissed Amina's head, then Rayhan's. We did this together. Now let's go home. The sun had fully risen, washing the world in gold. As I looked at my son and the child we saved, I realized that though our lives had been torn apart by greed and desperation, we had forged something stronger: redemption and love. Yet as we departed the precinct, Bilal handed me a sealed envelope. One more thing, he said. We found this on Malik. It's evidence that ties Jahangir Ahmed to higher echelons of trafficking beyond Lahore. You may want to see it. I opened the envelope, my heart pounding. Inside were pages of documents, showing bribes and shipments, proof that Ahmed's network was international. As I skimmed the details, I realized our fight was far from over. If we pursued these leads, it would unveil corruption reaching into powerful families. It could make enemies even more dangerous. But looking at Rayhan, eyes amber with renewed hope, and Amina, drifting to sleep against Rayhan's shoulder, I felt resolve replace fear. The path ahead would be treacherous, but it was a path of justice. I took a final breath as the bright morning sun illuminated our small group. My voice was steady, fierce with purpose. We continue. You taught me how to shape silver from raw metal, Mama, but now I'll shape a new world, one piece at a time. Hand in hand, mother and son and rescued child walked forward into that golden light, toward redemption, toward justice, and toward rebuilding everything shattered. Cliffhanger. But in the distance, a black SUV idled by Jahangir Ahmed's warehouse. Gates, its engine humming with silent intent. Inside, a figure watched us depart. Someone more powerful than Tariq Malik. Someone eager to reclaim what had slipped through his fingers. And as a cold wind swept through the street, I sensed that the true battle had only just begun. I opened my eyes to the sharp tang of store-bought saffron and the distant hum of city traffic. The morning sun filtered weakly through my bedroom curtains, casting pale lines across the floorboards. The past several nights had been a blur of restless sleep, haunted dreams, and adrenaline-fueled awakenings. But now, reawakening after that fleeting moment of peace, I realized that the fight was far from over. A slender shaft of light caught the gleam of my mother's silver crescent pendant as I rose from the bed. My childhood home lent its usual quiet, broken only by the faint scratch of a pen on canvas down the hall, an old neighbor painting landscapes. Even her muted brushstrokes felt like a violation of the silence, reminding me that the world outside moved on, indifferent to my turmoil. I dressed slowly in a simple golden-brown shalwar kameez borrowed from Farida. The color reminded me of the sand dunes outside Bahawalpur, where I once traveled with my father as a small girl, listening to him recite poetry about desert winds and lonely caravans. Now, that memory felt like it belonged to another lifetime. As I ran a hand through my hair, Rayhan knocked gently on my door. "Ma," he whispered, slipping inside with Amina in his arms. The little girl nestled into the curve of his shoulder, hugging a tattered pink blanket she'd refused to let go of since the hospital draped her in fresh sheets. She looked up at me with big brown eyes, and I felt a jolt of love so intense It made my chest hurt. "Good morning, Beta," I said softly, reaching out to brush her hair. "How are you feeling?" Amina blinked sleepily and snuggled closer to Rayhan, refusing to make a sound. Rayhan's face was etched with exhaustion. He slumped into a wooden chair and held the child protectively. His voice was hoarse when he spoke. "I didn't sleep much. I keep worrying about what's coming next." I exhaled a breath I'd been holding. "We'll face it together." I squeezed his hand. "Inspector Bilal called last night. He has new information from the documents we got from Malik, documents that show Jahangir Ahmed's deeper involvement. We need to go to the station. Everything depends on what we learn next." Rayhan nodded and helped me gather Amina in a soft wrap. We carried her into the kitchen, where Farida had prepared a modest spread. Parathas stuffed with potatoes, a dish, of aloo bhujia, a small pot of chai that steamed in the cool morning air. She greeted Amina with a gentle smile and stroked her hair. "She looks much better," Farida said, placing a plate in front of Rayhan. "And you both look like you need a good meal." I sat and took a deep bite of paratha, its warmth grounding me. But my mind raced with what lay ahead. The documents from Malik pointed to a network stretching beyond Lahore, a web that touched Karachi, Islamabad, even smuggling routes across the border. If we pursued this, we would not only bring down Ahmed's gang, but whatever syndicate funding them. 3 hours later, Rayhan and I stood outside the precinct in a narrow corridor lined with faded posters of missing persons. Bilal emerged from his office, his uniform crisp, but his face lined with weariness. "Good morning," he greeted with a tight nod. "I got word from Interpol contacts. They're investigating similar trafficking routes in Karachi. This case of Ahmed's fits the pattern." I felt my heart rate spike. Interpol? Karachi? The implications were staggering. Bilal sighed. "Yes, we intercepted communications, shipments of unregistered gems, small quantities of gold, even some antiquities. They're funding multiple operations. Jahangir Ahmed isn't just a local smuggler, he's a regional financier." I clenched my fists, knuckles whitening. He used my workshop's reputation to pick up small clients, women who wanted custom, jewelry, men wanting gold chains melted down. But I never thought he was using my business as a front. Bilal's eyes locked onto mine with a mix of respect and sadness. "You've navigated dangerous waters, Amina. Few would have survived. You've saved your legacy, your son, and that child. But now, we must strike at the heart of the syndicate." Before I could respond, Rayhan stepped forward, Amina still, wrapped in his arms. "Inspector, I want to know everything we can. Who at the top is pulling the strings? I can't stop now." Bilal nodded. "We have information on one name, Arsalan Qureshi. He's rumored to be an underworld financier with ties to arms smuggling and human trafficking. He's based in Karachi but shuttles to Lahore frequently." My mind reeled. Arsalan Qureshi, a name whispered in fear in Karachi's narrow lanes. If Ahmed's gangster ring answered to him, we were facing a powerful adversary. Qureshi wouldn't hesitate to order hits, bribe officials, and vanish like smoke. I inhaled, steadying myself. "Then we pursue Qureshi," I said. "If he's behind this, we press charges through Interpol and Pakistani authorities." Bilal nodded. "We'll coordinate, but we must be discreet. Qureshi has spies everywhere. Any misstep, and the entire investigation could collapse." I glanced at Rayhan, whose stern gaze met mine. That unspoken pact passed between us. We would see this to the end, no matter the cost. Leaving the precinct, we headed home, the noon sun shimmering off the tar road. Amina dozed faintly in Rayhan's arms. I felt a pang of grief at her innocence in the midst of such darkness. When we arrived, Farida met us in the courtyard. "They called from Interpol," she blurted out before we could say a word. "They want to speak with you, Amina, through video link. They have preliminary findings about Qureshi's operations. I nodded. Let's set it up. We moved to my workshop's small office, now doubling as a makeshift command center. Bilal's team had installed a secure laptop. I settled into the padded chair, Rayhan beside me with Amina. The screen flickered until the Interpol liaison appeared, a stern woman with wisps of gray hair, her badge indicating she was based in their Islamabad office. "Good afternoon, Inspector Bilal, Amina Hashwani," she said crisply. "I'm Catherine Martin. We have some developments. We've traced a series of shell companies registered to a Benazir Plaza address in Karachi. Beneath these companies lie Qureshi's operations, smuggling routes through Gwadar Port, ties to Afghan drug lords, and yes, human trafficking cells. We suspect he channels profits back to his personal accounts in Dubai." My heart fluttered. "So we have hard evidence?" Catherine paused. "We're acquiring more, but the intel suggests that Qureshi's network used Jahangir Ahmed's warehouses in Lahore as safe drop points. We also have indications that he's planning to expand to Peshawar. He may already have contacts there. If we time this right, together we can strike simultaneously in Karachi and Lahore." Bilal took notes. "We'll assemble teams in Karachi to coordinate with your agents." Catherine nodded. "And in Lahore, we'll crack down on Ahmed's remaining assets. Your evidence from Malik's phone and the warehouse raids are invaluable. We will need you to testify in Karachi for the prosecution." My gaze flicked to Rehan, remembering the betrayal he'd felt when he realized his indebtedness nearly destroyed everything. Now, shown the larger scope, I could see that his single loan had been a tiny thread in a monstrous tapestry. "Ready?" he said quietly, voice resolute. Catherine smiled slightly. "Good, but be careful. Qureshi will not go down without a fight." She signed off, and the screen went dark. I exhaled, the tension in my shoulders easing just a fraction. We have the plan. Next step, gather our evidence and prepare for Rasai. The raids. Rehan nodded and unwrapped Amina. Her eyes opened, blinking at the bright light. "Want breakfast?" I asked, gesturing to the small plate of leftover parathas. Her face brightened and she giggled, waving her chubby hand. The domestic scene soothed my spirit, however briefly. I turned to Bilal and Farida. "We need to brief our trusted neighbors, those who helped with the kidnapping search. They'll assist in safeguarding their children, distract Qureshi's informants, and keep an eye out for suspicious activity. We can't rely solely on the police." Farida agreed immediately. "I'll call the Women's Council and have them ready. They'll also keep safe houses prepared for any family members who may be targeted." Bilal managed a grim smile. "Time is short. We'll move tonight, caution at every turn." As the afternoon wore on, I spent my time going through the documents again. Each page detailed clandestine shipments, coded invoices for precious metal parts, a ledger listing payments to H Enterprises, Ahmed's front, and a wire transfer to a Dubai account under the name A. Qureshi. It all pointed unequivocally to the top. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Mother Superior at the local convent. She had sheltered a family whose teenage daughter narrowly escaped Qureshi's recruiters the week before. She offered their home as a potential safe house. I immediately called her. "Sister, thank you. We'll arrange transport tonight to pick them up," she replied, her soothing voice a balm. That evening, Rayhan, Farida, and I walked through our neighborhood, distributing additional flyers, photos of Qureshi's known associates, instructions to call the police if they spotted any odd vehicles, especially black SUVs with tinted windows. The humid air clung to our clothes as neighbors nodded gravely, clutching umbrellas. Some offered water, others a prayer. I was struck by the quiet solidarity. Everyday people united to stand against a looming evil. When we returned home, the sky was pregnant with storm clouds. Farida lit candles in the living room and placed them on borrowed tables, murmuring a prayer for those who would soon be endangered by this crackdown. Thus, when the rain began to fall, Slow drops at first, then sheets of water. A sense of grim determination filled the air. At 10 p.m., Bilal arrived with a small convoy, 3 unmarked SUVs and 2 police motorcycles. Their engines rumbled low. I braced myself, squeezing Rayhan's hand as he held Amina to his chest. "Secure the house," Bilal instructed. "Amina, stay with her grandmother until we return. We can't," I placed a finger to his lips. "She's too young to understand why we risk everything. You'll keep her safe, won't you, Rayhan?" Rayhan's dark eyes flicked between me and his niece. "Of course." He held Amina closer, as if she could be spirited away at any moment. Bilal nodded at me. "We moved to Ahmed's warehouse first." He handed me a pair of earphones. "Stay. In contact." I nodded. We drove through narrow lanes slick with rainwater, headlights cutting through the gloom. I tried to remember every scent: the wet asphalt, the tang of cooking spices still wafting from open windows. This was our home, and we were about to pour the judgments of law and justice onto it. 10 minutes later, we arrived at Ahmed's warehouse. It loomed like a tomb, floodlights perched at its corners, casting long shadows. Bilal motioned us to stay in the car until he signaled. Rayhan and I slipped into dark rain jackets, hoods pulled tight. The SUVs fanned out, inching forward. In the distance, I saw A Street's entrance, deserted and silent. On Bilal's command, we disembarked and approached the gate silently. The rusted metal gate creaked slightly as we shoved it open, revealing the courtyard once more. Crates, pallets, and the faint scent of lubricants and old metal. Our boots sank in muddy puddles. Bilal whispered into his radio. "Seize the perimeter." Within seconds, officers emerged from behind crates, weapons drawn, scanning the shadows. I felt a chill. At any moment, an ambush could erupt. The flicker of flashlights revealed locked side doors and barred windows. We moved toward the main entrance, Rayhan beside me, Amina's pink blanket stitching itself into my mind. Suddenly, a figure darted from a side door, one of Ahmed's trusted lieutenants. He scrambled to a forklift parked in a corner, igniting it. Bilal shouted, "Stop him!" Shots cracked, and a bullet pierced the forklift's tire. The vehicle skidded, crashing into a stack of crates. Fortunately, the man inside escaped, fleeing into the main building. Bilal barked orders, splitting his team. Some secured the yard, others moved into the building. We slipped inside a side corridor with them, the smell of wet earth and rust following us. I felt my pulse ratchet tight with tension as we descended a narrow stairwell lined with galvanized pipes. At the bottom, the dim hum of fluorescent lights greeted us. The room beyond was a cavernous space, a makeshift storage facility for illegal cargo. Tattered tarps covered wooden crates, and I recognized the unmistakable pattern on one box, the same pink blanket that shielded Amina when she was discovered. My breath caught. Bilal motioned for silence. We crept forward, the haze of dust motes dancing in the flashlight beams. I saw crates stacked 3 high, each stamped with H Enterprises in faded red paint. Beside them lay open crates with the remnants of crates, doll clothing, discarded blankets, and what looked like a child's broken toy box. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Rayhan's grip tightened on my arm. "They plan to traffic more children," he murmured. "Some of these crates are marked for shipping to Peshawar." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to focus. Bilal signaled us onward, and together we turned a corner. A row of smaller crates lay against a wall, labels reading "Fragile" and "Keep Dry." One crate bore a smudge of bright pink fabric, caught in the splinters. I recognized that pink from Amina's blanket. Bilal gestured for 2 officers to break the lock on the largest crate. They pried at the metal hasp, and with a sickening groan, the lid swung open. My breath turned to ice when I glimpsed several children, bound at the wrists, faces pale with fear, huddled in blankets. They looked at us with hollow eyes, their innocence stolen. I clenched my fists, wanting to weep at the sight, Bilal's team rushed in, untying the children's restraints, wrapping them in fresh blankets as officers led them away. One little boy, no older than 5, rubbed his tear-streaked face and whispered, "Mama?" My chest tightened. I knelt and offered a gentle voice. "You're safe now, Beta. We'll take you home." He looked at me, confusion and relief mingling in his eyes. Rehan guided me onward to the back of the room. There, I saw rows of large crates marked with shipping codes for Peshawar, cruel reminders of how these children would be moved north. My heart throbbed with fury. Bilal motioned me to the nearest crate. They kept records in here, logs of transactions, names, destinations, dates. This is the evidence we need to trace their final destinations. He cracked open a crate filled with ledgers and binders, covered in layers of dust. I opened a heavy folder and scanned the pages. Lists of names, children's names scrambled into codes. As I sifted through, a name jumped out. Tara Bano, age 8. Destination, Peshawar Warehouse. I recognized Tara's name from a local school's missing persons bulletin just last week. Anger burned like acid. How many more families had been torn apart? How many mothers cried out for their daughters? Bilal spoke urgently into his radio. "Extraction teams, sweep Peshawar Channel. We have names of likely locations. Move now." Rehan's eyes glistened with unshed tears. He placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, sensing my turmoil. "We did it, Ma. We saved them." His voice cracked. I wrapped my arms around him, tears slipping down my cheeks. The weight of our victory felt like a brittle, fragile thing. Revelation, that even in darkness hope could ignite. But I also knew this was only the beginning. We had the evidence and the children, but we had not yet faced Qureshi. Stepping back into the night air, my wet clothes clung to me, but I felt renewed purpose. The police led the rescued children outside, where ambulances waited to take them, to the hospital for exams and reunification with their families. Families that had prayed and agonized, unaware of the danger lurking so close. As dawn's peach light touched the horizon, I watched Rehan cradle a little girl, Tara, wrapped in a donated pink shawl. An officer was calling her frantic father on a cell phone. Tears of joy streaked down the man's face as he reunited with his daughter. My heart soared with relief. But through the jubilant reunion, a final thought shadowed me. Qureshi. He wouldn't be defeated by a few raids and arrests. He lurked beyond the borders of Lahore and Karachi. His power extended into Peshawar, and perhaps BTS to Afghanistan. We had to keep moving, keep fighting, until those at the very top faced the consequences of their actions. That evening, as my footsteps echoed in my workshop, I reflected on how far we had come. The polished tools lay dormant on the bench, awaiting my return. But instead of shaping silver and gems, I now shaped a path toward justice. A knock at the door pulled me from my reverie. I opened it to find Bilal, his uniform pressed but his eyes dark. "Amina," he said gravely. "They've managed to reach Qureshi's wife, Tanya. She's fleeing the country tonight. We have to intercept her." I inhaled sharply. If we let her slip away, she could destroy all evidence and vanish. "I'll come with you," I said firmly. "After tonight, we bring Qureshi down. For every mother, every child he stole." Rehan joined us at the doorway, Amina cradled between them. "Let's finish this," Rehan said, determination blazing in his eyes. Under the pale glow of a crescent moon, we climbed into Bilal's SUV, ready for the next battle. The road ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger, but together, we would see it through. Cliffhanger. As the SUV accelerated into the night, I glanced at my son, at the little girl in his arms, our future, and then at the rearview mirror. Far behind us, at the entrance to the warehouse, a black SUV idled. Its headlights were off. A figure inside watched us depart. I could only guess who it was, but I knew in my bones it was someone powerful, someone far more dangerous than Tariq. Malik, someone ready to unleash a retaliation we were not prepared for. I closed my eyes for a moment, praying for strength. We were on the cusp of the final confrontation, and I felt a chill. Our greatest challenge still lay ahead. To be continued in Part 6. The highway was a ribbon of asphalt slick with recent rain, stretching between Lahore and the sprawling Allama Iqbal International Airport. My heart thudded against my ribs as we navigated the car through inky darkness. Bilal drove with practiced focus, his eyes alternately flicking to the rearview mirror and the road ahead. Rayhan sat in the back seat, Amina in his arms, her soft breathing rising and falling in an innocent rhythm that reminded me of the stakes we faced every second. "Inspector, do we have a solid lead on Tanya Qureshi's destination?" I asked quietly. Bilal checked his phone's GPS coordinates. "Cargo Terminal 2. She's booked on the midnight flight to Dubai. I have an Interpol agent standing by to arrest her once she lands. But first, we have to detain her here, in Pakistan." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Tanya Qureshi, married to the man responsible for so much evil. She might hold keys to his crimes, account information, correspondence, evidence of transactions. If she managed to flee, that evidence would vanish, and our painstaking efforts could be for nothing. Rayhan placed a gentle hand on Amina's head. "Ma," he whispered, "what if she looks at me and I break?" I reached back and squeezed his shoulder. "You'll be fine. Just focus on Amina. We're here to protect you too. You've already done so much." His gaze flicked toward me, grateful but haunted. The memory of his near poisoning at Tariq Malik's hands still haunted him. He had risen from it, his scars hidden beneath his shirt, but the emotional wounds lingered. As we neared the airport's perimeter, Bilal tapped the radio. "Alpha Team, be in position. Bravo Team, secure the exit gates. We're ready." We turned into the airport's dimly lit cargo access road, where high concrete walls blocked our view of the runway lights beyond. The guard booths were empty. Security seemed less vigilant this late. The darkness pressed down on us as we parked near a cargo loading area marked "No Entry, Restricted Access." Bilal, Rayhan, and I stepped out, our jackets hooded, Amina still nestled in Rayhan's arms. A single distant light illuminated the shipping containers stacked in neat rows. The hum of a Boeing 777's engines idled, awaiting its next cargo load. Bilal snapped on a walkie-talkie. "Target vehicle is approaching. 1 more minute." I tensed, anxious. The shadows deepened, and through my perturbed focus, I caught sight of a black Mercedes-Benz van gliding silently into view. Its tinted windows prevented any view of the passengers inside. The van slowed near the cargo lounge's guard post, and a lone guard stepped forward. The guard, a tall young man about 25, face drawn, stopped the van, eyes flicking to a laminated ID card held up by the front passenger. He remained impassive. "Qureshi Cargo Transport," he mumbled, scanning the card with a portable device. The device beeped green, and he waved them through without hesitation. If only all checkpoints were this careless. Bilal raised a finger. "Move!" We dashed behind the stacked containers and positioned ourselves at the van's blind spot, aware of the camera that might cover the stretch leading to the loading bay. Rayhan's hand tightened on Amina's back. Our small team would have only one chance to act. The van came to a stop directly in front of a large roller door. Tanya Qureshi, pale but composed in a modest salwar kameez and hijab, stepped out. Her face was composed, but her eyes darted anxiously. She clutched a leather handbag, an expensive-looking Fendi with a discreet interlocking logo, the price of which could have paid for a year of school fees. She glanced at the guard, who nodded. She stepped inside the cargo lounge. Inside, the cargo lounge was bare and fluorescent lit, A dull gray floor, industrial metal tables, and a massive metal door separating it from the plane's hold. She strode purposefully toward a small desk. Near the back, behind which sat a middle-aged man wearing a dull blue jumpsuit, an airport official who looked more than slightly suspicious. They greeted each other with barely concealed relief. Tanya slid a stack of documents across the desk. The official scanned them with a small, handheld scanner, then slotted them into a metal filing cabinet. I could read the label: Flight, Manifest, DXB. Suddenly, the official's eyes widened. He muttered something in Urdu and reached into his pocket. Before he could pull out a phone, Rayhan burst through his chair, tackling him to the floor. The official shouted, but Tanya gasped, stumbling back in shock. Before she could react further, Bilal's team flooded inside, guns drawn. "Freeze!" Bilal's voice rang out. Tanya's composure cracked, her eyes widening in fear. I stepped forward, my voice calm but firm. "Tanya Qureshi, you are under arrest for human trafficking, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit multiple heinous crimes. Put your hands where we can see them." She looked at me with an icy detachment. "You think you can stop my husband's empire? He's been planning this for years. My departure was just a formality." I stepped closer. "You are leaving tonight with evidence on you. You're our link to Qureshi's network. Hand over everything. Fast." She narrowed her eyes. "You think I'll help you? My loyalty is to my husband." Bilal gave her a hard look. "Listen, to her, Tanya. Your husband's network has collapsed in Lahore and Karachi. You're the only one who can help you and your children. If you cooperate, things will be easier. If not..." He let the implication hang. Tanya's face went pale. She hesitated, then exhaled, her shoulders sagging. She drew her shawl tight and opened her handbag, revealing a stack of folders and a small laptop. She handed them to Bilal with trembling fingers. "It's all in there. Accounts, locations, names, dates. He'll kill me if he finds out, but I have to protect my children." Amina, sensing the tension, let out a soft whimper. Tanya's face softened at the sound of a child in peril. "I'll do anything," Tanya said, her voice shaky. "Just keep my children safe." Bilal nodded. "You'll be protected under witness protection. But first, you'll come with me to record your statement." He gestured to two female officers who stepped forward. They gently took the folders and laptop, placing them into evidence bags. Tanya was led out, flanked by officers. I caught her glance at Rayhan, her eyes filled with despair. Perhaps she saw in him the consequences of her choices. As they departed, with Tanya, Bilal turned to Rayhan and me. "We have enough here to indict a dozen people. We need to cross-reference these documents with Interpol's data. For now, Roger to secure this site and detain the airport official." I exhaled. "Let's get out of here." Back at the precinct's interrogation room, Tanya sat at a table in a stained blue jumpsuit, her hijab removed and replaced with a simple headscarf. She sipped water, watching us with hollow eyes. Beside her sat the airport official, bound at the wrists, crying in shame. I took a seat opposite Tanya. Rayhan stood behind me, protective. Bilal watched silently. "Tanya, we need you to tell us everything about your husband's network." "Where can we find him?" I began. Tears tracked down her cheeks. She shook her head. "He's gone to Karachi. The deal there fell through. Someone tipped him off. He suspects I betrayed him. He'll kill me for this." I swallowed. "Tell me where exactly in Karachi." She pointed to a set of coordinates scribbled on a scrap of paper from her handbag. "That's his old warehouse in sight. It's abandoned. Now, he's probably in Clifton, staying at his villa. She abruptly stopped, shuddering. Bilal leaned forward. "You have to be precise. We need to find him before he flees the country." Tanya's voice shook. "He has a private jet. If he gets to the runway, he's gone. He made plans months ago. The coordinates will get you to his Karachi safe house. Not what you think. It's not a warehouse. It's an upscale boarding house on Clifton's 3rd block. He meets his partners there. I felt a cold knot form. Clifton's famed bakery district lay just behind it. Luxury shops and villas dotted the area. If he was in the boarding house, he was among innocents. Tourists, businessmen, tourists. We had to be precise. Bilal gestured to an officer. Take her to a safe cell and assign protective detail. She's our only witness. The female officer escorted Tanya out of the room, her slender frame trembling with each step. The door closed with a heavy clang, leaving Rayhan, Bilal and me in silence. Rayhan broke it. We do this now, don't we? Bilal nodded. We have to move fast. We'll coordinate with Karachi PD and Interpol. But first, we need to ensure Tanya's protection and prepare for the raid. I placed a hand on Rayhan's shoulder. I know you're tired, but your courage has brought us this far. We can't stop now, he nodded. For Amina, for every child he's hurt. Bilal looked at his watch. We leave in 30 minutes. Gather what you need. We'll meet again at 10:30. The hours passed in a frantic rush. Tanya's placement in a secure witness protection cell at the local magistrate's house. Messages sent to Karachi's anti-extremism task force. A call to Interpol's Islamabad office confirming that their Karachi station was mobilizing. I packed a small overnight bag, extra clothes, an extra pair of sandals, and my mother's silver filigree bangle, my talisman in this war of shadows. By 10:04 p.m., we were on the tarmac of Lahore's smaller runway, boarding a military transport, plane-bound for Karachi. Amina slept on my lap, exhausted from all the activity, her soft snores echoing in the echoing cabin. Rayhan sat beside me, scanning the sealed envelope of Tanya's documents, a tedious-looking stack of ledgers, passports, and financial spreadsheets. Bilal sat across from us, his face set. Interpol will meet us at Jinnah International, from B. There, Karachi PD will take us to Clifton. I nodded, trying to steady my nerves. The plane's engines roared as we took off into the stormy night, lightning flickering outside the small porthole. Every bolt of light overhead felt like a crack in my resolve. Once we reached cruising altitude, the flight attendants, 2 officers in cargo pants and bulletproof vests, checked our exemptions and boarded luggage. The plane held 6 rows of seats, but only our convoy of 4 officers, Rayhan, Amina, and me, occupied it. The rest was crates of police equipment and medical supplies. Rayhan bent down to check on Amina. Her mouth parted as she yawned, sleep still in her eyes. He smiled, at her, his face softening. Tomorrow we'll have breakfast on Clifton Beach, he whispered. Amina cooed and stretched, her fingers curling around Rayhan's index finger. I felt a swell of love for my family, a sense of purpose. We were fighting not just for revenge, but for justice, for every mother and child who'd fallen victim. The flight crew adjusted the cabin lights, and the plane banked into its descent toward Karachi. Thunder rumbled as the city lights came into view, glowing against the dark sea. The captain announced our impending landing. I clicked my seatbelt tight and inhaled deeply. Karachi PD will be waiting on the tarmac, Bilal said. We can't afford any slip-ups. When the plane touched down, a security detail of Karachi officers boarded, led by Superintendent Ali Jamal. A tall, stern man with closely cropped hair and an intense gaze. He saluted Bilal. Inspector Bilal, welcome to Karachi, he said, voice low and confident. Are you prepared for tonight's operation? Bilal stood and shook his hand firmly. Yes. We have coordinates for Qureshi's safe house in Clifton. 3rd block. We need to move quietly. He leaves tomorrow morning at dawn. If we're not careful, he's gone before we reach him. Superintendent Jamal nodded. Understood. We have a team ready, SWAT, CID, and Interpol liaisons. We'll proceed in 1 hour. You and your team can rest in the operation vehicle. There's a secure house nearby where Tanya is being held. Your niece stays there as well. A chill washed over me. A secure house, safe from Qureshi's reach, but not guaranteed safe from everything. I tucked Amina's pink blanket around her and glanced at Rihan, who gave me a gentle nod. We deboarded and walked across the tarmac into a black armored Land Cruiser waiting for us. The rain began anew, droplets hitting the steel roof in staccato beats. The city's glare revealed an endless sea of buildings resplendent in the neon haze. I pressed a hand to my chest. The weight of the night pressed upon me. The drive to the safe house was tense. Every intersection held possibility of ambush. Superintendent Jamal's team rode ahead in unmarked cars, the blacked-out windows shimmering with rain. We followed in a convoy of 2 SUVs. We pulled into a narrow lane off Clifton's Sunset Boulevard, a row of sprawling houses facing the Arabian Sea. The safe house was on the corner, hidden behind a high brick wall topped with razor wire. A small guardhouse stood to the side, lights on, and armed. Officers watched the gate. Tanya and a handful of Interpol officers stood inside the courtyard. Her face was ghostly pale. She had changed into a simple white salwar kameez to blend in. When she saw us, relief flooded her features. "Mother Amina," she said softly. "Thank you." I forced a small smile, knowing we had little time. "We'll keep you safe. But Qureshi will come after you if he finds out." She nodded, tears brimming. "I know." Rayhan carried Amina into the house, a modest 2-story bungalow with barred windows and a generator humming in the back. The interior was sparse, metal bunks, a small kitchen corner, and a stack of donated clothing. I saw Tara's soft blue blanket draped over a cot, an echo of the children we'd rescued. Inside the living room, Superintendent Jamal and his officers convened with Interpol liaison Martin and Pakistan's Federal Investigation Agency agents. Maps of Clifton scrawled with red markers covered a folding table. I rested against the wall, Amina in my lap as Bilal stood by Jamal. Bilal's voice was low. "Karachi PD will breach Qureshi's safe house in 30 minutes. Tanya will come. With us? We can't afford any mistakes." Jamal nodded. "Clifton, 3rd block. House number 17. Private residence of a businessman who's been missing since last week. Qureshi's men have kept it under 24/7 CCTV watch. We'll approach from the rear lane, access through that narrow alley. Our team has night vision goggles. Once we confirm Qureshi is inside, SWAT will go in." Martin tapped her pen. "Interpol? We'll handle securing Qureshi once he's detained. We'll arrest his key lieutenants." I felt my heart pound. We were moments away from capturing the man who had nearly destroyed my family. The gravity of that moment weighed on me like a heavy stone. Rayhan touched my shoulder. I looked at him, determined. Bilal turned to me. "Amina, I want you and Rayhan to stay here with Tanya. Once we confirm he's in the house, we'll call. You can decide if you want to confront him or let us handle it." I squared my shoulders. "I want to see him face to face. I need to look him in the eyes and say what I have to say." Bilal studied me for a moment and nodded. "Understood. But be careful. We move in 10. I nodded and carried Amina up the stairs to a small bedroom. Tanya followed, tears in her eyes. "Mother Amina," she said, voice shaking. "I never got to apologize for what my husband did to you and your family." I knelt beside her. "Don't blame yourself, dear. You were trapped in his world. Now we'll end it." Amina's eyes fluttered open. She blinked sleepily and cooed, then curled back against Rayhan's chest. In that moment, amidst so much violence and darkness, I felt a strange moment of peace, the innocence of a child, safe for now. Downstairs, the team moved into position. I could hear the radio chatter, quiet, urgent, the sound of shoes on gravel, whispered commands, and the click of locks. I held Amina close, her warm weight an anchor. Rayhan stood by the window, watchers every movement outside. The alley below was narrow, only wide enough for a single car. We watched and waited, Minutes. Crawled by. Then, an officer's voice crackled over the radio. Target sighted. Qureshi is standing by the large front window smoking a cigar, his wife by his side. My heart stopped. I peeked through the gauzy curtain of the window, 5 houses down. I saw illumination from a second-floor window, yellow light flickering inside. A shadow moved. It was him, tall, broad-shouldered, smoking what looked like a Panamanian cigar. His features were sharp and aristocratic, high cheekbones, a commanding gaze. He wore an expensive black sherwani, its silk glimmering in the glow of the chandelier. "Stand by," Bilal whispered into the radio. "Clifton PD Team Alpha 1, breach now." I watched as team members fanned out, getting into position for the breach. Rayhan's face hardened, jaw clenched. A sudden crack of a shotgun through the window shattered the quiet. Qureshi flinched, dropping the cigar. I saw him dive behind a table as gunfire erupted. The SWAT team's night vision gear lit his outline. A dark figure crouched near the window, pistol in hand. "Move, move!" Bilal's urgent radio bark. I felt Rayhan's grip tighten on my arm. "He's got a long-barreled pistol," he said, voice tense. Another shot rang out. Blam! And the chandelier above him rattled. I heard a cry, but could not tell if it was the wife's or Qureshi's. "Clear the rear lane." "Superintendent," Jamal ordered. "Breach from the back!" I saw feet kicking open the back door, sliding a rickety table aside to force it. Rain spattered in, and SWAT officer, masked, rushed in, gun raised. I saw Qureshi's silhouette emerge from the front window's shadow. He dashed toward the back staircase. An officer shouted, "He's headed upstairs." Bilal and undercover CID agents pursued. I felt my pulse burn hotter. I gripped Rayhan's arm, but could not tear my eyes from the scene. The house's interior was a blur of ornate Persian rugs, polished wood furniture, and expensive artwork, a stark contradiction to the corridor outside. Suddenly, a single shot rang out inside, a deafening crack. The second-floor room's door burst open, and 2 men wrestled Qureshi toward the stairs. His shouts echoed, but the echo died quickly. I feared the worst. A KCID officer emerged, panting, dragging Qureshi by the collar, his sunglasses off, exposing his furious eyes. He was face down on the floor when they cuffed him. I ran down the stairs as fast as I could, Rayhan close behind with Amina pressed to his chest. When they led Qureshi down the staircase, blood trickled from a small wound on his right shoulder. He looked at me, his hatred masked behind stunned disbelief. "You," he spat, venom dripping from his gaze. "I should have killed you when I had the chance." I felt a fierce calm. "You tried, but you don't belong in this world. You prey on the vulnerable, children, widows, orphans. It ends today." He smirked, lips curling. "You think you've won? My reach is everywhere. You have only delayed the inevitable." I stepped closer. "You're right, it's not over. But tonight, you face justice." A crowd of officers converged, taking him away. I watched, chest heaving as rain splattered the ground, drifting into ragged gusts that whipped around me. The air felt electric, charged with the promise of retribution. Rayhan knelt before me, placing Amina in my arms. Her small face peered at me from under damp curls, as though sensing the gravity of the moment. "Are you okay, Amina?" I whispered, brushing strands from her forehead. She blinked at me, yawning again, giving a single soft giggle. I exhaled, tears streaming down my cheeks. "Yes, Beta, we're safe now." Rayhan rose, picked up my hand, and looked into my eyes. "Mama, we did it. For everyone." I nodded, voice choked. "Yes, we gave them back their hope." But as I held my son and my niece close, and watched Qureshi led away into custody, I sensed another shadow moving at the edge of the light, a silhouette perched on a low rooftop across the street. A single figure, arms folded, watching. He slipped away in the dripping night. My breath caught. Despite Qureshi's arrest, I knew that someone else remained, a mastermind even higher, someone who'd orchestrated this entire network from the very beginning. I glanced at Rayhan, seeing it mirrored in his eyes. The knowledge that though we had conquered one enemy, another waited in the darkness, someone more powerful, someone yet to reveal themselves. But for now, on this drizzly Karachi street, with the storm still raging, I whispered a vow to the night. I will find you too. And, as thunder rolled across the sea, I realized that our journey had only truly begun, to be continued in Part 7. I wake to the scent of salt in the air and distant foghorns mournfully calling across the harbor. The cramped safe house feels impossibly still now that Qureshi has been taken away, ushered into Karachi's central jail under tight security. Yesterday's storm has passed, leaving the clouds heavy with unresolved tension. I cradle Amina in my arms. Her gentle breathing is the only reminder that life continues, fragile but unwavering. Rayhan is already awake, seated at a small wooden table, poring over Tanya's files. His brow is furrowed, deep lines tracing the curve of worry that nights of little sleep have etched onto his face. I pour a steaming cup of chai and settle beside him. Tanya's documents reveal a name, M. Khan. Rayhan says softly, pushing a folder toward me. It appears in Qureshi's ledgers alongside shipments marked for Peshawar and beyond. My gut tells me this is the man we saw on the rooftop, the one pulling the strings. I lean in, scanning the spreadsheets. Transfers under a company called MK Enterprises, invoices for unregistered gems, and financial notes directing payments to bank accounts so layered with offshore shell companies that they appear untouched by corruption's reach. This M. Khan could be a pseudonym, I say, tapping the folder. But look at this address. Islamabad, G Block, Sector 2. It's a high-end residential district. Rayhan nods. If he's really based there, we might catch him unprepared. I sip chai, my mind racing. But we can't just storm a businessman's home on rumor. We need evidence placing M. Khan at the helm of this entire syndicate. Rayhan folds his arms, eyes determined. We'll use Qureshi. He'll talk if we threaten to expose every last detail of his collaboration. Let's head to the interrogation. First thing. I cradle Amina and rise. Agreed. But I have a bad feeling. The silhouette we saw, he wasn't just watching, he was studying us. He knows how close we are. Rayhan swallows. We stay vigilant. By mid-morning, Bilal and a pair of Karachi PD inspectors escort us to the jail's interrogation wing. I tuck my necklace, a small silver locket, in my kurta, feeling its reassuring weight against my chest. Amina clings to Rayhan's hip, sucking, her thumb in sleepy confusion. Inside a dimly lit room, Qureshi sits at a metal table, shackles on his wrists. His neatly trimmed beard is flecked with gray. His once powerful frame slumps like a puppet with its strings cut. He watches me with cold, defiant eyes. Mother Amina, he sneers. Back to lecture me. I approach the table, leaning on my palms. Tell me about Monsieur Khan. He jerks his chin toward the window. Monsieur Khan never reveals himself. I've only seen him once, his silhouette, like you saw, before he faded into the night. You have no proof. Bilal slides a photo onto the table. A solitary grainy frame from a surveillance camera in Islamabad. It shows a man forcing a driver out of a minivan, his face concealed by a tailored suit collar. Below the image, a timestamp and GPS coordinates. Qureshi's eyes flick to the printout. He swallows. You must be kidding. That's not... You can't... His voice cracks. Fine. His name is Mansoor Khan. He's a prominent exporter. He donates to charities, sponsors sports leagues. You wouldn't find anything on paper. He's the invisible partner. When shipments arrive, I distribute them through Jahangir's warehouses. I lean in, voice steady. We have evidence. Your ledgers, Tanya's files. We know you paid him 5 million rupees for each consignment. So where is he right now? Qureshi glances down, jaw working. He's at the Islamabad Marriott. He flies to Dubai tonight. My pulse quickens. So, Indian Ocean Airlines ticket 7A2433? I ask, flipping to the page listing a flight leaving at 11:40 p.m., booked under Masood Khan, an obvious alias. He meets an associate in Dubai, then disappears into the labyrinth of corruption. Qureshi nods. Yes. Rehan looks at me, hope sparking in his eyes. We can catch him in Islamabad. Bilal turns to the inspector. Prepare a team. We fly tonight. A knot tightens in my chest. Tonight? We have to act before Khan escapes. But an operation in Islamabad requires delicacy. We need coordination with Interpol and Pakistan's Federal Investigation Agency. If we go in too fast, he'll slip away. Bilal meets my gaze. I know it's risky, but if we don't strike now, he'll be gone. He's right. This might be our only chance. I cradle my locket and lower my voice. We move with precision. No leaks. The hours pass in a blur of whispered phone calls and rapid-fire planning. Rehan and I pack an overnight bag, clothes for Aman, an Urdu name I'd given to the operative who helped us in Lahore, plus essentials for ourselves, and a small backpack with a change of clothes for Amina. All the while, I feel a prickle of dread. Islamabad is unfamiliar. We'll be outside our comfort zone. By 9 p.m., a small chartered ATR aircraft awaits us at Karachi's old airstrip. The cabin is lit by overhead fluorescents. 4 plainclothes officers sit in silence, hands clasped together. Interpol liaison Martin, her face stern, scans her notes. Bilal sits beside her, a silent pillar of resolve. As we taxi onto the runway, the city's lights fade behind us. The engine's roar merges with the thud of my heartbeat. I gaze down at the dimly lit streets of Karachi, thinking of the children we saved, the families we reunited, and now the pursuit continues. In Islamabad, the early November chill greets us. A dry wind rustles the pines. We disembark in the small terminal, where a blend of DHA SUVs and unmarked cars wait. Superintendent, Ali Jamal's deputy, a wiry man with close-cropped hair and piercing eyes, briefs us. Marriott is 2 kilometers from here. We've secured floor 14, suites 1445 and 1446. M. Khan is registered in 1445. We have exact check-in times, a digital copy of his room key, and floor plans. He points at a handheld device showing the hotel's floor grid. We move in at I. 12:15. Liaison with the hotel security team is compromised. They're under his pay. You'll approach from a service elevator in the kitchen area. We'll pack a fake catering order, gain entry to service corridors. Once you're inside 1445, observe him. We need to confirm his identity before we strike. We cannot mistake someone else. Understood? I swallow. Understood. Rehan's face is set, jaw clenched. Amina is bundled quickly into a carrier. Bilal slides a Glock 19 into the small of his back. I tuck my locket beneath my shirt and check my pocket for the small pepper spray I always carry. We approach the hotel's back entrance, a nondescript service door beside the kitchen. The cook's uniform I wear identifies me as a late-night caterer arranging a VIP order. 2 tall guards, oblivious to my nervous heart, wave us through. The service corridor is dim, flickering fluorescent tubes buzzing overhead. The scent of sautéed garlic and roasting meat drifts from the kitchen. I keep my head low, stepping carefully. Rehan grips my arm, eyes alert. Suddenly, a figure ahead steps into the flickering light. A uniformed bellhop carrying linen. His face is frozen in alarm as he sees my ID. He stammers, "Miss, you can't come this way." Rehan presses a finger to my lips. I shake my head. The plan is in motion. We excuse ourselves, redirecting around him, and press the call button for service elevator number 3. The bellhop's shout is lost in the hum of the corridor as the elevator arrives. Once inside, Rayhan taps the button for the 14th floor. The doors close with a metallic thud. The small cabin rattles as we ascend. I hold Amina, her eyes wide in the dim glow. I whisper assurance, "Be brave, baby. We're almost there." At the 14th floor, the elevator doors slide open to a silent hallway lined with cream-colored walls and plush carpet. The faint hum of air conditioning vents and distant elevator chimes fill the silence. We can hear hushed voices from 1445. Muted English-language news broadcast filters through the door, a reporter discussing a diplomatic scandal. Bilal signals us to crouch behind a decorative potted plant near 1447. He whispers, "That's their room. See the number? 1445. He points to a brass plate on the door. Rayhan adjusts the small camera clipped to his lapel. "I'll record. Make sure it's clear." His voice is steady. I sense his fear, but also his resolve. I sink to my knees beside him. "On my mark," Bilal whispers. 3, 2, 1. The door to 1445 clicks open. Khan steps out, clad in a charcoal-colored suit, tie neatly knotted. He's taller than I expected, shoulders broad, his hair slicked back. He glances down the corridor, eyes passing over me for only a second. I hold my breath. He steps into the corridor, phone pressed to his ear. His voice is low. "Yes, get the shipment ready for Peshawar. We can't delay again." He doesn't see us, his back turned. The camera captures everything. A second man emerges, a corpulent figure wearing a luxury watch and carrying a briefcase. He's milling outside 1446. I catch a glimpse of his face, pale, heavy-lidded, as though accustomed to the finer things that keep him immobile. He moves toward the other door and disappears. I exhale. We have him on camera. Bilal's phone lights up. "Perfect. Good work, Rayhan." Rayhan swallows. "Ready, Inspector?" Bilal nods. "Proceed." He steps forward, unseen by Khan. Bilal slips his arm across the corridor, gun drawn. But Khan's phone call ends just as Bilal squares his shoulders. Khan's voice draws away. "Stay sharp," Bilal whispers. He's stepping back inside. We wait, tense as the world. I can feel my pulse thudding in my throat. When Khan finally heads back inside, Bilal gives the signal. 2 officers in fatigues sprint forward, slide their hands across the doorknob, and shout, "Karachi PD, don't move!" The door flies open. Khan's eyes flash with shock. "What?" He reaches inside the door, grasping a small pistol from a nightstand. My heart seizes. Bilal shouts, "Drop it!" Khan's hand tightens around the weapon. His gaze shifts to me. Those cold, calculating eyes meet mine. Suddenly, he lunges forward, firing once. The bullet ricochets off the hallway's plush-carpeted floor with a deafening crack. Rayhan and Bilal dive for cover. I crouch behind the potted plant, Amina trembling in my arms. The hallway lights flicker as Bilal returns fire. Khan scuttles back into the room, the door slamming shut behind him. Bullets puncture wood, metal, and glass. The hallway echoes with gunfire. Rayhan shields Amina and me, holding us close. "Khan is armed and dangerous," I say again. "Shoot! To kill!" Bilal's voice crackles. Officers on the stairwell open fire into the open door of 1445. I feel a sinking dread as the staccato bursts continue. Finally, the gunfire ceases. Rain patters on the windows, a mournful rhythm. Bilal motions for us to move. We slip forward to the door and peer inside. Khan lies on the room's plush red carpet, his face caked with dust, clutching the discarded pistol. Blood seeps through his crisp white shirt. He's alive but critically wounded. Surrounding him, puddles of spilled whiskey, an overturned cigar box, and his phone, its screen cracked. I approach slowly, kneeling beside him. He meets my gaze, his eyes glazed with pain. "You," he whispers, voice ragged. You have no idea who you're dealing with. His words send a shiver through my chest. I search his face. Lighter now, sallow, a mixture of regret and fury. You financed misery, I say softly. Children died because of you. You profited from their tears. He coughs, a spray of blood. I provided for my family. This world has no room for mercy. I touch his hand, feeling the tremor as it slips between mine. Mercy is a choice. You chose greed. He meets my gaze one last time, a tear forming in his eye. You think this ends here? My father's name will not be tarnished. He slumps, his breathing slowing. Fear knits my brow. The time of those smug, powerful men is ending, and the fear that their fathers, shadowy patriarchs, will come after us burns like acid in my stomach. I stay beside him, whispering verses from the Quran until he breathes his last. Downstairs, in the lobby, we wait as forensic teams collect evidence and paramedics wheel Khan's body away. The storm has returned, rain pounding the windows in erratic rhythms. I feel drained, emotionally exhausted and afraid of what comes next. Rayhan stands beside me, Amin asleep against his chest, the rhythmic rise and fall of her breath a faint comfort. Bilal approaches, his face grave. We got enough evidence to dismantle his network. Tanya's file, Qureshi's confessions. This operation, Interpol will request extradition orders for his missing partners. But there's something else. Khan mentioned his father's name before he died. He said his father will come after us. A chill slithers down my spine. Who is he? I ask, voice barely a whisper. Bilal shakes his head. Khan refused to explain. He only whispered, he's known as the Merchant. A man of many faces, he operates beyond borders. No national banner can bind him. Pray you never meet him. Rayhan looks at me, eyes wide. The Merchant? I swallow, dread coiling in my gut. The name's like a ghost story told in shadowed corners, too powerful to be more than rumor. Bilal places a hand on my shoulder. We go home tomorrow, but we stay on high alert. This Merchant, if he's real, he's out there. And now he'll know we got his son. As we turn to leave the Marriott, the lights of Islamabad shimmer in the distance. The storm's thunder rolls across the city, echoing the tumult in my heart. I clutch my mother's locket and vow, no matter where he hides, I will find you. Cliffhanger. As our convoy pulls away, I glance at the rain-slicked pavement, reflections of orange streetlights dancing like specters. In one flicker, I see a lone figure watching from a doorway, half hidden beneath a black umbrella. His face is obscured, but I know I've just seen the Merchant's sentinel, a harbinger of the battles to come. The desert air of Lahore feels thick, heavy with the summer's first heat, but my heart stings with a cold that no temperature can dispel. We've returned from Islamabad in the early morning hours, exhausted after staying up late debriefing, with Interpol and the FIA. Rayhan holds Amina close, her small frame still lulled by the plane's hum. The safe house in Johar Town is as modest as before, its courtyard flanked by walls high enough to keep neighbors, and danger, at bay. Yet I feel safer in Karachi. Here, I sense the Merchant's reach creeping like vipers in the darkness. We step inside to the familiar scent of jasmine from Farida's indoor plants. She's been caring for this place while we were gone. She emerges from the kitchen in a faded kurta, eyes red from worry. Thank God you're back, she says, rushing to hug me. I thought I'd lose my mind. I hug her trembling form, closing my eyes. We heard back from Interpol. They've flagged M. Khan's accounts and begun freezing his assets. Tanya's testimony is scheduled for this afternoon. But there's more. I glance at Rayhan, who watches with an unreadable expression. Farida sets a glass of water before me. I take a sip, letting the coolness steady my thoughts. When Qureshi died, he whispered about his father, the merchant. He said the merchant would come after us. Today at dawn, someone left an envelope taped to our gate. Farida's gaze flickers to the front gate, where 2 KPK officers, a detachment from Karachi, stand watch. Their rifles are slung across their chests. He was arrested by ISI a month ago, one of them says. Adu's not happy with all this cross-border investigation. He insisted we remain here, under orders from Islamabad. I nod. Thank you, but keep a close eye on the neighbor's rooftop. The merchant's sentinel might still be there. After the officers leave, I open the envelope at the kitchen table. Inside is a single sheet of paper, words typed in monotonous, black font. Your son survives because I allow it. 28 hours. No signature. No address. Hot anger flares within me. I pace the room, unable to stand still. Rayhan steps into my path. Did you call Bilal? He asks quietly. I set the note. Before him. The time is counting down. The merchant doesn't negotiate. He protects his own. Rayhan's face pales. We need to be with Tanya now. If she's next. I gather the note, stuffing it into my pocket. Yes. We go now. We drive through the city, the rickshaw horns and motorcycle roars forming an uneasy symphony. At the high-walled guest house in Bahadurabad, where Tanya is being kept, the early sun blazes. Security is tight. 5 officers guard the iron gate, their AK-47s at the ready. Tanya steps out onto the porch, wearing a simple black abaya, her face drawn and haunted. She clasps her hands together as I approach, Amina still in Rayhan's arms. Amina, she says, voice hollow. They told me the merchant will target me next. They threatened my children. I take her shoulders in my hands. You must be with your children, but first, we need your statement for Islamabad. We have to secure the prosecution. She nods, tears glistening. We move inside. Beneath a ceiling fan that whirs with an anxious hum, Tanya recounts Qureshi's operations, his dealings with politicians, shipments disguised as textiles, children hidden in false compartments. She mentions a name that chills me, General Adil Hussein, a retired army official turned security consultant, rumored to advise the merchant. Rayhan's jaw trembles. A general? I press a hand to my chest. He's beyond our reach. If he's involved, this won't end easily. Bilal and the Islamabad liaison, Martin, video conference in. Through the screen, they look relieved, but grave. Thank you, Tanya, Bilal says. Your testimony will go before the FIA Special Tribunal. But this General Hussein, if he's aiding the merchant, we need to confirm. We'll share your statements with NACTA. Tanya exhaled, relief and fear mingling on her face. After the interview, we return home. The envelope's words thrum through my mind. 28 hours. I slide my phone from my pocket and press Bilal's number. No answer. My chest tightens. Try Rayhan's phone. He's on a call with Martin, finalizing the Karachi raid against Qureshi's inner circle. I exit the living room, needing space. In the narrow hallway, Amina's faint giggle drifts behind me. She's playing with her stuffed rabbit in the bedroom. I walk to the front door, glance at the thick iron gate. 2 tall pines line the courtyard. A breeze stirs their needles. My throat constricts. Time is slipping away. I slip into the guest bedroom where Farida has laid out clean linens. Rayhan enters, his face pale but determined. They found one of Hussein's bank records on Qureshi's phone, a deposit of 50 million rupees. It's from the Ministry of Defense account. That's how he kept the merchant funded. My pulse rattles. If the general's name is on this, we need to expose it, Rayhan nods. But that means going beyond the FIA. We need the Supreme Court's special bench. We have to avoid leaks. The merchant and General Hussein have powerful friends. Breathing quickens. We'll need legal cover. Bilal's out of contact. He's in Karachi. Rayhan's eyes soften. Come with me. I want you by my side. He takes my hand, and we slip outside. The courtyard's jasmine-scented breeze brushes our faces. Farida emerges with 2 cups of cold water. What's the plan? She asks. Take a cup without hesitation. We head to DHA's new FIA office, straight from here. We'll meet the lead prosecutor, Afea Malik. She's known for her integrity. We present Tanya's statement, the evidence linking General Hussein to the merchant. Then we move to file an emergency plea in the Islamabad High Court. Farida nods, determination in her eyes. I'll handle transport. We leave in 30. At the FIA office, an imposing glass and steel building near the National Parade, the lobby is buzzing. Security badges, uniformed personnel, and black-suited lawyers dominate the scene. A decorated officer meets us in the foyer. Deputy Director Fatima Qureshi, no relation to Tariq. Her stern face betrays the urgency in her eyes. Director Afea Malik is waiting, she says, leading us through a corridor lined with photographs of past FIA successes. We pass offices labeled cybercrimes, economic offenses, and finally enter a bright conference room. Afea Malik sits at the head of the table, 10 feet long, strewn with files, interlinked charts, printouts of bank transfers, CCTV stills from multiple cities. Afea's hair is pulled back in a tight bun, her eyes cool and analytical. She gestures for us to sit. Tanya's portable recorder sits open on the table. Thank you for coming, Afea begins. Tanya, your testimony was damning, but to indict General Hussein, we need corroboration, a direct link between him and the merchant. M-Con's phone records and ledgers are my primary evidence. We need to compile these and file before midnight. My chest tightens. The merchant's threat gave us less time. If the merchant or his allies find out, Tanya could disappear. Afea glances at the recorder. We'll keep her in secure lodging. For now, we need to draft the application. Here, these statements, child trafficking records, Khalid's, AA, friends file on rail shipments, cross-reference with Qureshi's records. She hands me a stack of papers. I leaf through them. Index cards listing children's names, locations where they were abducted, forensic reports verifying child labor rings in Peshawar. Each document is a piece of a larger mosaic of horror. My breath catches as I read the lab's analysis of bloodstains found in shipping crates. Touching the pages is like touching pulse points of crimes. Rihan hands me Tanya's statement, rewatching the detailed video. Afea's phone buzzes. Text from Bilal in Karachi. Qureshi's inner circle convicted. Mercy petition denied. I'm on plane to Islamabad. ETA 11:30. My eyes widen. We have 4 hours. Afea nods. We file tonight. I'll brief the Chief Justice's chamber. But be warned, if General Hussein learns of our move, it could be too late. I grimace. We'll need to move fast. Afea taps her phone. I've summoned the assistant registrar. He'll walk us through the digital filing system. Let's secure these documents first. We settle at the conference table. The glow of a computer screen flickers before me as I type the petition. Each keystroke echoes like a hammer blow. General Adil Hussein, retired, is hereby indicted for espionage, abetment of child trafficking, and money laundering. Evidence: financial transfers from Ministry of Defense to Merchants Shell. Companies. Supporting documents attached. Exhibit A. Qureshi's phone ledgers. Exhibit B. Tanya's confession. Exhibit C. Bank statements. Rayhan sits beside me, eyes glued to the emergent figures on the screen. Timestamps, case numbers, approval prompts. Afea stands behind him. Check the attachments. Make sure none of the files are missing. I scroll through dozens of PDFs, tax, records, human trafficking logs from FIA's real-time tracking unit, CCTV captures of shipments. My fingers tremble as I click Upload. The screen counts up, 150 files, 25%, 50%, 75%. When the progress bar finally reaches 100%, a quiet chime sounds. Afea exhales. Now, we notify the registrar, 8 minutes until the midnight. Deadline. I press Submit. On-screen confirmation. Case filed successfully. Case ID, IHC 21763. The relief that floods me is immediate, like a dam breaking. Afea's face remains composed. They'll hear this tomorrow morning. We need to move Tanya to a secure location. FIA's safe house at Pier Sohawa. It's outside of the city, protected by military personnel. Rayhan, you'll drive her. Amina, you come with me. We'll ensure the registrar acknowledges the petition. I nod, feeling the adrenaline spike. By 11:15 p.m., Tanya, Rayhan, and I are in 2 separate vehicles heading toward the capital's fringes. The winding Margala Hills Road is shrouded in darkness, only headlights illuminating the slick asphalt. Trees loom on either side, their leaves whispering in the night breeze. On the passenger seat, Tanya gazes out the window, tears glistening in her eyes. I never realized how deep it goes. Rayhan glances at her. You've done the bravest thing a mother could. Now we protect you. I sit behind the wheel of Afea's SUV, driving at a steady pace. My mind drifts back to Bilal's words. 27 hours left. In 9 hours, midnight will have passed. Will that note's countdown expire? Will the merchant follow through on his threat? Afea's phone buzzes in the passenger seat. She glances at the screen. Message from Islamabad High Court. Case. ID IHC 21763 accepted for hearing. First hearing set tomorrow at 10 a.m. She exhales. We did it. Now we protect Tanya. Once the merchant sees our legal move, he'll be forced to react. I feel a flicker of hope that the court's power will safeguard her. But as the road curves into the hills, I sense something else. A shadow detaching from the roadside trees. A lone figure draped in a dark shalwar kameez stands where the pavement gives way to a trail through the undergrowth. He watches our vehicles disappear around the bend. In that moment, I realize this fight is far from over. Rayhan's voice breaks the silence. Mama, are you okay? I force a calm smile. Yes, Beta, we're close. But deep inside, I know, we have awakened a beast that does not sleep. At the FIA safe house, a fortified villa perched low on the Margala foothills, military jeeps line the gravel driveway. Soldiers in olive uniforms check credentials. Inside, Tanya is ushered into a bedroom fitted with bulletproof shutters and CCTV monitors displaying the villa's courtyard. Afea and I stand in the hallway. She'll be monitored 24/7, Afea says. The merchant won't find her. Tanya places a hand to her chest. Thank you, all of you. Rayhan kneels beside her, whispering assurances. Amina, now awake, reaches for her mother's phone, oblivious to the gravity of the moment. I step onto the private balcony overlooking the distant city lights. Wind from the hills whips at my hair. Below me, the entire cityscape of Islamabad twinkles under the storm-washed sky. If the merchant steps onto those streets, he's out of my direct reach. He's the final piece of this dark puzzle, shadowy, ruthless, the mastermind whose name Afea swore not to speak aloud. Swallowing, I text Bilal. Case filed, Tanya safe, merchants move. No response. The night deepens, and I stand alone on the balcony. The wind's whispering feels like warning. The merchant's sentinel watches from a distance. Suddenly, Farida's phone buzzes, an incoming text from an unknown number. She reads it aloud. Congratulations, Amina Hashwani. You've done well to chase your demons. But remember, the last move is mine. When you wake tomorrow, you will learn that hope can be as fragile as glass. Good night. A cold dread washes over us. Farida drops the phone into my hand. its screen flickering with the ominous message. I stepped to the balcony edge, gaze fixed on the sleep-darkened city below. Terror and determination churn within me. The merchant has spoken. The final act begins, now, and I realize, closing this chapter may cost everything I hold dear. Cliffhanger. As the message's echo lingers, a distant cry of a jackal drifts up from the valley below. Somewhere in the darkness, the merchant smiles, for he knows our weakness. And tomorrow, when dawn breaks, our world may shatter. Part 9. Dawn rose with an ominous hush, as if the world held its breath in fear of what the day might bring. The Margalla Hills, still damp from last night's storm, glowed silver in the pre-dawn light. I stepped onto the terrace of the FIA safe house. Amina nestled against my hip, her small hand gripping my shirt. Rayhan and Farida followed, their eyes already scanning the valley below. The city lay spread out in shades of gray, silent and watchful. I checked my phone. No messages from Bilal. That empty silence pricked at my nerves. We had until midnight to rest, but now it felt like every second was slipping through our fingers. The merchant's final warning echoed in my mind. Hope as fragile as glass. Rayhan cleared his throat. We need to get Tanya to court this morning. The first hearing is at 10 a.m. I nodded, wrapping Amina's pink blanket tighter around her. Farida clasped my shoulder. I'll bring breakfast to your room. You need strength. I managed a tight smile. Thank you. I followed Rayhan down the dimly lit hallway to the extraction van, waiting at the gated courtyard. A tangle of nerves knotted in my chest. The crisp air stung my lungs as we drove into Islamabad's waking streets. By the time we reached the Islamabad High Court precinct, the sky was streaked with pale orange and lavender. Crowds gathered, lawyers, journalists, activists. The facade of the colonial-era building loomed, its white pillars brilliant in the morning sun. Bilal arrived moments after us, his uniform impeccable, but his eyes wore rings of exhaustion. He glanced at his watch, then at me. Everything secure here? I nodded. Tanya's on her way. He exhaled, relief flickering in his expression. After her testimony, we moved to arrest General Hussein. The registrar approved our petition. The Chief Justice granted a 48-hour injunction preventing him from fleeing. My heart thudded. So, he can't leave the country. Bilal nodded. But if he's already moved to a safe location, we have to find that first. Rayhan glanced at me, intense. We win today, then we hunt him down. Farida appeared, handing Rayhan a wrapped samosa and a bottle of water. We stepped through the marble entrance, flashbulbs popping as journalists swarmed Tanya. Rayhan guided her toward a private conference room adjacent to courtroom 2. I walked beside Tanya, offering a reassuring nod. She pressed my hand, grasping for courage. Inside the courtroom's antechamber, dozens of onlookers waited. Guards formed a narrow path, and when the door to the courtroom swung open, Tanya and Rayhan slipped in. I hovered just outside, peering through the narrow glass panel. The courtroom was packed. The Chief Justice presided from a high bench, flanked by 2 senior judges. General Hussein sat to the right, his broad shoulders filling the defendant's chair. His expression was carefully neutral. Tanya stepped up to the witness stand. The Chief Justice peered down at her. Ms. Qureshi. His voice echoed solemnly. You are under oath to tell the truth. Do you understand? She nodded, eyes bright. A hush fell. The prosecution counsel rose. Your Honor, we call Tanya Qureshi to testify regarding the activities of the late Tariq Malik and Mansour Khan, and their association with the defendant, General Adil Hussein. She took a steadying breath. Your Honor, in 2023, Tariq Malik confided that he received funding from a high-ranking official in the Ministry of Defense. That official was General Adil Hussein. Her voice wavered, but she held her gaze. Hussein shifted, expression unchanged. My stomach twisted. The prosecutor continued. Ms. Qureshi, can you describe the transactions you witnessed? She swallowed. On Tariq's phone, I saw bank statements. One was a transfer of 50 million rupees from an account under the name MOD Collab Fund, the Ministry of Defense suspense account, into Tariq's covert account. These funds were to finance shipments of unregistered gems and human cargo. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Journalists scribbled notes. Chief Justice Hakim's voice cut through the quiet. General Hussein, how do you respond to these allegations? The general rose, his uniform starched, medals gleaming. He regarded Tanya with calm eyes. Your Honor, he began, voice steady and controlled. This is baseless. Any funds attributed to me are either government disbursements I had no knowledge of or charitable contributions misappropriated by criminal elements. I categorically deny orchestrating any illegal activity. A ripple of applause broke out. Political allies disguised as court attendees, it seemed. I felt bile rise at the injustice. The prosecution attorney's tone turned sharper. Your Honor, we have documented evidence contradicting these claims. Exhibits XYZ, bank reconciliation statements, CCTV footage from Quaidi Azam's residence, and signed correspondence between the defendant's office and shipping firms establish a direct link. He placed a thick binder on the bench. The general's face did not flinch. Your Honor, these documents could be forgeries. I request time to review them. The Chief Justice nodded. Request granted. Hearing adjourned until 2 hours. Ms. Qureshi will be escorted to a secure location. General Hussein will remain in custody. The gavel pounded. I escaped the courtroom into the hallway, heart pounding. Rayhan and Bilal were waiting. He's in custody for now, but they'll release him pending further evidence, Bilal said. Rayhan shook his head. No, he won't get out. We have him. I exhaled, but unease lingered. The general's confidence suggested he had backup, contacts in the power corridors. If we did not gather incontrovertible proof, he'd slip away again. 2 hours later, Tanya was safely at the FIA safe house. I joined Rayhan and Bilal at a cafe across from the court. We spread the exhibits folder on the table, spreadsheets of bank transfers, photographs of high-security warehouse receipts, and a stack of signed letters from Hussein's office authorizing shipments. As we pored over the evidence, I felt the merchant's shadow lift momentarily, but then Bilal's phone buzzed, a text from the jail superintendent in Karachi. Hussein transferred to Central Prison. Security maximum, awaiting formal indictment. He tapped the screen. The general's attorney filed a writ petition this afternoon claiming diplomatic immunity. They're pushing for a halt. If they succeed, they'll appeal to the Supreme Court. Rayhan's fingers drummed the table. We need to prevent that. We must show the Supreme Court that diplomatic immunity doesn't apply to crimes against humanity. I remembered Bilal's words, a retired general advising the merchant. Could there be a broader conspiracy? As we left the cafe, the sun blazed overhead, harsh, unforgiving. We made our way to the Islamabad High Court's registrar office. The foyer was packed with petitioners and clerks. We waited in line as Rayhan approached the counter. He slid the exhibits folder across. We need an urgent hearing to prevent diplomatic immunity from blocking this case. The clerk, a bespectacled man shuffling papers, looked up. You need Form 7A, certified copies, extra deposits, and a sworn notarized affidavit of urgency. Rayhan exhaled. We'll do it. Keep this open until we submit. He scurried off to locate a notary public. I watched him go, heart pounding. The merchant's time bomb still ticked. Late that evening, I stood on the rooftop of our safe house, wind whipping my hair. The valley lay in darkness, the city lights shimmering like distant fireflies. Rayhan joined me, eyes haunted. The merchants. Sentinel hasn't shown, he said. I shook my head. But he's out there. He'll strike when we least expect it. He exhaled. Tanya's secure. The general is detained, at least for now. We have a fighting chance. I nodded, but did not trust hope this close to dawn. Farida joined us, her silhouette framed against the sky. We're ready to file Form 7A at first light, she said. I looked at my son, at my niece sleeping inside, our small family battered but unbroken. Rehan cradled my hand. No matter what, we face it together. I pressed my locket against my chest. The rising sun bled pink over the horizon, a fragile promise that we still had time. But as the first light touched the hills, I felt the weight of the merchants. Threat? 28 hours had passed, yet our world remained intact, only just. We had escaped his first strike, yet in the distance, I sensed the rustle of figures moving silently through the dawn mist, a reminder that the merchant had other hands at work. We had won battles, but the war raged on. Cliffhanger. In a narrow alley behind the court, a white Toyota Corolla idled. Its rear passenger door opened slowly. A gloved hand slipped onto the door's edge. Two men in black suits and mirrored sunglasses slid out, their faces impassive. One tapped his earpiece. Target still on the rooftop. Proceed. And as they drew small, silenced pistols, the pale sun rose fully, illuminating the final move in the merchant's deadly chess game. To be continued in Part 10. Part 10. The dawn's pale light cast long shadows across the rooftop as Rehan noticed movement at the edge of the terrace. My yoga routine, a rare moment of stillness, faltered. Amina's mat lay unrolled near the parapet, her giggle still, echoing in my mind. Suddenly, two dark figures crept around the corner, step by silent step. The first, a slender man in a black suit, raised a silenced pistol. The second, stockier, checked his watch. Without thought, Rehan lunged, his feet thundering, on the concrete as he charged the first man, tackle intent. I screamed, my voice sharp as a whistle. The assassins turned, surprise flashing across their masked features. Bullets fizzed past Rehan's shoulder. One grazed his jacket, the other thudded into the brick wall behind me. I ducked to shield. Amina, who whimpered, her tiny body trembling against my leg, adrenaline surged through me. Bilal's voice echoed in my mind. Stay sharp. Threats come from every shadow. From behind, I heard Farida's shout, Get down! She dove toward Rehan, wrapping herself around him as another bullet cracked the air. Rehan rose to his feet, eyes blazing as he tackled the second gunman. Their bodies crashed to the ground, gunmetal flashing. A deafening roar split the air, police sirens in the distance. As the assassins scrambled to their feet, another black SUV screeched into the courtyard below, scattering early morning pedestrians. A hail of rifle fire erupted from the windows on the first floor below our terrace. Rehan's men and Karachi PD, secured in the courtyard, returned fire at the fleeing vehicle. On the terrace, Rehan and the two men grappled. The slender assassin swung the pistol toward Rehan's head, but Rehan twisted, the barrel grazing his cheek, drawing blood. I cried out. Before he could fire again, Farida hurled a steel-potted plant at the man's wrist, sending the pistol clattering across the terrace. Rehan grabbed the gun and pinned the assassin to the ground, disarming him entirely. The stockier man lunged at Rehan, fists swinging. Rehan countered with a sharp uppercut to the jaw, his training in self-defense paying off. The assassin collapsed, dazed. Rehan pressed his knee to the man's chest, then glanced at me, sweat beading his brow. Stay here, he whispered, pressing a hand to his cheek. Blood seeped through his fingers. I'll secure them. He rose and hauled the stocky man to his feet, cuffing him with a handcuff key retrieved from his pocket. Beside them, the slender man was already subdued. Two Karachi officers swarmed the terrace, handcuffs in hand. Both suspects are in custody, one radioed. I felt Farida wrap her arms around me, her relief palpable. You both could have died, she whispered, voice shaking. I clutched Amina, her eyes wide and tearful. Rayhan wiped the blood from his cheek, his face grim. No, they won't. His confident tone steadied my heart. An hour later, we gathered in a secure courtroom annex, hastily assembled for the special tribunal. General Hussein sat shackled in the defendant's seat, the chamber's heavy air thick with tension. 4 masked officers guarded both entrances, eyes darting for any sign of danger. Few journalists were allowed in. The rest waited behind frosted glass panels. Tanya sat beside me, her face pale. Farida hovered at the back, arms folded, alert. Rayhan stayed close, his fresh bruise beneath his cheek a reminder of how close we'd come to losing everything. Bilal stood at the front, preparing to address the bench. Chief Justice Hakim entered, robe swishing, his expression unreadable. 2 associate judges flanked him. The gavel landed and the room fell silent. Bilal rose. Your Honor, new evidence has emerged. We have apprehended 2 suspects, hitmen sent by the merchant, who were assigned to eliminate Ms. Hashwani and her son earlier today. Their statements, along with forensic analysis linking them to General Hussein's network, will be submitted as Exhibits A-102 and A-103. The Chief Justice examined Bilal's outstretched folder. He scanned the photos. The rooftop terrace, Rehan's bloodied cheek, Amina's mat, and the suspects in police custody. His gaze flicked to General Hussein, who stared back, defiance etched on his mask-benefited expression. Bilal continued. We have also obtained bank transfers from the merchant's shell accounts that funneled money to General Hussein. Exhibit B210 confirms that worth 10 million were earmarked for assassination attempts in Islamabad. The Chief Justice leaned into his microphones. General Hussein, how do you plead? He stood, clearing his throat. Your Honor, this is a conspiracy. The merchant is behind these allegations. I deny any conspiracy to commit murder. These so-called suspects are criminals with no standing evidence linking them directly to my office. A murmur of dissent rippled through the small audience. I felt a tightening in my chest. Bilal strode forward. Your Honor, we have their confessions. Audio recordings where they admit receiving orders from a middleman working for General Hussein. The chain of command is clear. At that, one of the masked officers removed his balaclava, revealing a young face, Inspector Ahmed Khan, sent from Karachi as part of the Joint Task Force. He handed folded sheets to Bilal, typed confessions admitting they were hired by an intermediary to surveil and eliminate me and Rayhan. The intermediary's name, Colonel Mirza, a retired ISI official, now on General Hussein's payroll. The bench regarded the documents in silence. The Chief Justice's voice rang out. General Hussein, you are charged with conspiracy to commit murder, terrorism financing, and violation of human rights accords. You will be remanded in custody until your trial. Bail is denied. A collective exhalation surged through us. I felt my knees weaken. Rayhan's arm went around me, steadying my trembling body. The general's face contorted with rage. He spat. This is a travesty. You have no evidence. Bilal approached, his tone calm but unforgiving. Your patron, the merchant, is international. Your connections to him are now indisputable. Your attempt to silence us has been thwarted. General. Hussein's lips curled. You'll never find him. I met his gaze. I will, he sneered. As officers hauled him away, Bilal turned to me. This is the end of the line for him, but the merchant remains at large. Rayhan exhaled, relief mixing with lingering fear. We tried. We won today, but the war goes on. I watched General Hussein led from the room, his prison guard's boots clicking against the marble floor. His final glare burned into my mind. Later that evening, we returned to Lahore. The ride was silent as Karachi's and Islamabad's adrenaline wore off, replaced by exhaustion and a strange, fragile hope. At our front gate, two uniformed FIA officers still stood watch. Amina yawned, sleepy, her eyes drifting closed. I carried her across the threshold, grateful for the stability of home, if only for a moment. Inside, the familiar scent of burning incense replaced the sterility of safe houses. Farida lit a small lamp in the courtyard, its glow soft and golden. We settled on low cushions surrounding a tray of dolls and rice, each of us too tired to eat more than a few bites. Rayhan broke the silence. Do you think he'll try one final move? The merchant? Or is this it? I exhaled, fingers tracing the silver filigree of my mother's locket. I don't know. But I'll be ready. This story doesn't end with General Hussein's downfall. Farida placed her hand over mine. What matters is that hope isn't fragile, it's resilient, like our family. As we sipped chai under the swaying jasmine vine, I felt a weary peace descend. We had toppled a general, disrupted the merchants' network, children were safe, crushed dreams replaced with new beginnings. Yet the merchant's ghost lingered in the periphery. I thought of that final message. The last move belongs to him. And somewhere in the shadows of Lahore's sprawl, I sensed he watched, plotting, waiting for the next moment to strike. But as dawn approached, I realized that if hope could be fragile, it could also endure, rooted in the unbreakable bonds of family, courage, and the steadfast belief that justice, while a tenuous flame, could outlast the darkness. With that thought, I held my son and niece close, envisioning a future where their laughter outshone the echo of past pain, where a jewelry artisan's legacy became more than shiny silver. It became the quiet strength to endure, to rebuild, and to love beyond fear. I whispered a prayer, offering gratitude for the battles won and asking for courage for the ones that might come. And as the first pink light of dawn crept across the sky, I felt, for the first time in a long while, that maybe, just maybe, we were free to live again.